Thank you all for being here. This is the small council. Actually, people gathered pretty quickly, which is surprising. All right, this is a small council, which we do Saturdays at 9 p.m. Eastern. We have a fantastic group of individuals here. I'm going to introduce them. Before then, if you happen to be watching this on YouTube, please like, comment, and subscribe. We got always more content for you. And if you want to see that content continue coming your way, please consider becoming a YouTube member, hitting that join button, becoming a member, supporting that us in that fashion. All right, we'll start by introducing Blay. Hey, you up there?
Hello, Prime. It is me, Dylan Blay, notorious nuisance. I'm here, and I guess we're gonna be talking about the big shits today. So, woohoo! That's gonna be fun. You can find me under Dylan Blay on Spotify and on Apple Music and wherever. I will link them in chat.
Oh wow, he's advanced, right? All of a sudden, he's discovered the hyperlink, right? Even though I told him to do that like fucking 20 times already. Oh, you think that might work? You think maybe rather than asking the audience to go search for you, an unknown, that maybe you would just provide them a link? Wow, just revolutionary ideas from Blade today.
Shocker. I know.
Amazing.
Plot twist of the decade, Prime. Anyways, yeah, you can also find me there on YouTube under the same name. That I will not be linking. Too lazy, not feeling up to it. So I'll hand it over to whoever wants to talk next. Woohoo!
Baby steps. Baby steps. Moving on. All right. We got my man Wick back, right? The channel favorite, right? Of everyone watching the stream, he is the favorite. The number one in their hearts, right? Everyone. Hi, Wick. How are you?
Hi. Hopefully my audio is not breaking up again. Is it going pretty fine? Okay, good. I don't know. Maybe it's just like a blip in the matrix, or maybe the man was trying to silence my voice for tonight. I got some hot takes to drop. This is an interesting topic, and we got a lot to talk about today. For those of you watching who may not know who I am, well, now you know. I am Wick. Also, I run a channel on twitch.tv/deathofcertainty called, well, Death of Certainty, where we have all sorts of interesting topics and conversations. But tonight, I'm helping out my man PrimeCayes, and we're gonna have a great discussion. I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, moving on. We have a redheaded man, aka Dustin, regular here on Open Panels. Really happy, always happy to have them. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Thanks for asking. For those that want to know, no, you cannot find me. You can only find me here, or maybe a couple other panels, but I don't stream or anything. So not allowed. I'm only here.
I'm exclusively here, but maybe some other places. I
try and whore myself out to those I deem worthy, and you're one of them. So
thank you. I'm gonna change the server for Discord. I think it's being a little weird. Let's try that. Okay. Hopefully, yeah, I have a strong connection. Hopefully everyone else is good too. We'll mess around with it. Okay, moving on. We have well, despite what his name says, we have LSP. LSP back with us. Has been a very long time. Has been an extremely long time.
Yeah, thanks for having me back, Prime. I'm LSP. I am a proud patriotic conservative American. Trump 2024, the election was clearly stolen. I am here to set the libs and the leftists straight. We're not going to be dealing with any nonsense today, okay, guys?
All right, I'm all ears.
Nice. Okay. Next, we have. I actually didn't listen to what he said, so I'm assuming it was actually pretty terrible. Moving on. The Turk. Back with us, right? Look, I'm assuming he is, because I think he's under his characteristic camouflage. So I'm assuming whatever shapes I'm seeing there is the Turk. Turk, how are you?
I'm doing good. You should only not be able to see the top of my head. The rest you should be able to see. It's not like a.
There's a headless person on this stream.
But no, I'm doing good. I'm a little short notice, so I may or may not be too productive, but I think y'all will think my takes are a little more interesting than the standard conservative. So I stream science and tech, doing some benchmarking right now of some undisclosed hardware that is not released or publicized just yet. So that's the kind of stuff I do. And if you like that kind of stuff, all the different socials, The Turk, I post all sorts of nerdy stuff. So thanks.
Okay. All right. Well, that's fantastic. That's actually pretty interesting, right? That's actually really interesting. I think Turk's got like a really fun job. Yeah, I'd actually check that out.
Really
Okay, we have one other person who will be back with us theoretically. So we're waiting on that person, but we'll move forward.
Bring back my main man. Whew.
Yeah. So we'll introduce the topic and go from there. All right. So I don't have it in front of me. I never do. In a tweet, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene criticized the idea of profiting from war. However, it was discovered that the day before, she actually bought stocks in Lockheed Martin, a large war contractor. But is it actually wrong to profit from war? Is it wrong to invest in weapon manufacturers? Aren't they legitimate businesses? Is there any culpability for investors for the violence or lives lost due to the products of a war contractor? So yeah, I really want to explore this topic. I think it's pretty interesting, and I feel like it's something that most people really, I guess, try not to think about if they're in some way tied to that quote unquote defense industry. It's the fucking war industry. All right, let's be aware about that. So yeah, I'm really curious what y'all have to say. We'll start with opening statements with Blay. What's up?
Yeah, so I guess my take here isn't going to come as a shocker from a left-wing perspective, but all types of funding for defense contracts and militarily funded ventures, especially by politicians who, make executive decisions on these things, are pretty bad, actually. They are partly responsible for the loss of lives. They are investing directly in technology and weapons to be used to assist in the deaths of countless people. Anytime it seems like we have some sort of imperialist venture or something to that effect, or any type of military spending, we see bad results. We see military coups funded. We see defense contractors make big bank, for example. You can see there was a lot of funding that went into private contractors to send weapons out to Bolivia 3 years ago. They did a coup there against Evo Morales. They did this a long time ago in the, I believe it was the 70s or 80s, with the coup in Chile against Salvador Allende. Did all sorts of kooky bad stuff. They funded it. Was directly responsible for the worsening of so many lives, the deaths of many people. And for investing in these types of industries, you are in fact culpable for it. You are funding these deaths, especially when your money could be going much better places. We have our own domestic issues. We have all types of issues around here. We don't need to invest in, foreign affairs, which ultimately result in the deaths of millions of people. And that is directly funded by investing into private contractors.
Hey, thank you. All right. Next we have Wick.
Okay, so my take's a little more nuanced. War is a terrible thing, but it is, unfortunately, as we've seen with the Russia-Ukraine, sometimes you can't always choose whether or not you want to be involved in war. Sometimes war comes to you. And in order to be prepared for war, you need to have equipment. You need to have better equipment than the enemy. So the fact that we have companies that build weapons of war is not necessarily a bad thing. What is a problem, and what is a moral sin in my book, is the way that politicians and the military-industrial complex in America have cozied up to each other. Politicians investing in these things is much different than a private citizen doing so, because politicians have incentives. They have the ability to make decisions to go to war or to fund operations in foreign countries and things, and sell weapons to foreign countries that the average citizen does not have a say in. So for politicians to do it absolutely is wrong. For the private citizen, I do not think you necessarily are culpable for what these things are, because again, these things are needed. Now, I would look into the companies before I would invest in them, make sure that they're at least on the up and up. The problem is in America, I can't think of a company that invests in war like Boeing, Lockheed Martin, etc. That's on the up and up. But as a principle, no, I do not think that it is a sin to invest in a company that manufactures weapons. It's just how the politicians do it. That's all.
Thank you, Justin.
Yeah, I looked at this more from the idea of like actual politicians being able to buy stock, whether it's actually through them or kind of like putting their stock into a blind trust, which cannot always be blind, depending on conversations that are had. Personally, it's not something that I value as far as like the idea of participating in the market. I kind of like the sweat of the brow and supporting trade workers instead of like people that make their money off the market, though I definitely don't condemn them. If you can, good on you. It's definitely worth the gamble. It is an investment in a bunch of different countries, therefore it's a bunch of different companies, therefore it's an investment in the United States, and I'm all about that. So I don't think politicians should be allowed to do it. I think that we can segment them off from the market completely. I think we may see some benefits if we did do that. As far as defense contractor companies goes, I'm very happy that the United States happens to be on the cutting edge of this. Something that I like to see more and more, although kind of counterproductive, because I'd much rather see a peaceful kind of world build solution, somewhat of like a Marshall Plan for the rest of the world, instead of like allowing China the One Belt, One Roadway initiative. I think we get more and better results that way.
Okay. We'll go to LSP. LSP, please.
Hi, everyone. There's like 900 different things I want to respond to in all of your openings, and I feel like really deprived, and I know I can't do that. So I'll just say, Dylan, if you ever want to talk Pinochet, because I think you got your facts wrong on that, hit me up after this. Okay, so I'm going to lay out what I think is the most nuanced position. But of course, I think that. I don't think there's anything fundamentally wrong with making money off defense contractors. Marjorie Taylor Greene's issue was that she'd talked about war profiteering just before buying Lockheed Martin. That's the reason, like, she's got some issue. It seems natural to me that most people are going to try to do whatever furthers their own self-interest as much as possible, and there's nothing wrong with that. The issue with defense contractors, or having any kind of like stake or ownership in a defense contractor, is not just the ownership of the defense contractor itself, but the political machinations that would like encourage their use in warfare or something like that. Like starting a war or something to get defense contractors rich is unethical. Starting a war for some justifiable reasons and defense contractors getting rich is perfectly fine. There shouldn't be an issue with that. I'm not entirely sure I accept the premise. I mean, I understand a perverse incentive with politicians, but I really kind of feel like you got to like really dig for that, especially when it comes to like contracting work. Like the vast majority of wars that have been fought lately, this is not like imperialist conquest. This is mostly like there's a war on terror, right? There's a combat against ISIS or something to that effect. There's a war in Ukraine. It seems like there's very legitimate combat operations that are taking place in the world that would justify the use of these arms. There's nothing wrong with using these arms. There's nothing wrong with these arms existing. There's nothing wrong with these companies existing. There's nothing wrong with making money off these companies. All of that seems all on the up and up to me. The only issue is like when you abuse warfare to make money. That's an issue, right? But merely making money off warfare is not an issue.
Let's go to Turk.
Yeah, so I actually kind of agree with both Wick and LSP on this because, you know, war is an inevitable thing that happens in the world, and in order to succeed in war, you need tools to accomplish the mission. And, you know, I'm glad that the United States has a really broad and vast array of tools at our disposal so that we can win. I was kind of more similar to what Red Bearded Man said, you know, more on the MTG slant, because I completely resonate with a lot of people say about how she's being hypocritical, she shouldn't be allowed to do this kind of thing, yada yada yada. But at the same time, there's several other members of Congress that do similar things, like Nancy Pelosi, who goes and puts boatloads of money into tech stocks, and then they do some sort of a tech bill that promotes those stocks going up as well. So it's like, if you're gonna criticize one side, you got to do it on both sides and all sides and equally and fairly, and condemn all of this. So that's why I would actually would like to see us not pay congressional people or people holding public office, because as your civil duty, you should be serving these offices. We shouldn't have people being career politicians. That shouldn't be for your career. It should be for bettering our communities. So that's kind of my take. I'm really interested to see where the conversation branches from here.
Okay. LSP, do me a favor and try to keep yourself muted, because we can hear you typing and stuff.
Sorry.
No problem. Okay. Last but not least, we have Revolt Rise, who's back with us. Great, fantastic. Revolt Rise, you can introduce yourself and then the topic.
Yeah, thanks. Yep, I'm Revolt Rise. I'm a glorified chatter that exclusively available here on the PrimeCayes channel at the moment. So there you go. You got at least one exclusive out of the deal.
That's because Mr. Girl is gone. That's literally it.
Right. And also, I'm here, I guess, in defense of the defense industry, something that I guess I'm the only one on the panel at the moment, I think, that gets paid by them, but that's what I do for a career. So it's obvious where my bias lies. And I think I'm going to be able to make a good argument for you guys that it's actually one of the most leftist capable things that a capitalist government is ever going to do is support the defense industry. It's the only thing that we consistently spend money on. It's the only jobs program that we have that's meaningful in this country, and it's the only way that we spend invest in tech and in development of new technologies. So without it, we wouldn't have the internet that we're sitting on today. It was originally developed as part of funding from the Defense Department for being able to link ICBMs together for diagnostic purposes. So there you go.
Okay. Yes. So, what I'll do is I'll take myself off screen. We got enough people here, right? I'll let you guys talk it out. I'll, direct things. I'll now stay out of it unless one of you guys fucking triggers me, meaning LSP. So we'll go from there. All right. All right. So open to the panel.
So I want to ask you a question, Turk. So, just to be clear, you would be for not paying our politicians? Is that what you said?
Yep.
So, one of the reasons I would disagree with that is because I actually think we should pay our politicians more. I think one of the reasons they're susceptible to being influenced by these lobbyists and companies, as defense companies included, is because they don't feel financially stable. They don't feel that they're able to get enough money. So if we paid them a little more,
what's the average congressional salary?
It's a lot. It's a lot.
Okay,
200,000.
So they're not financially stable while getting paid a lot.
No, I understand. Great. I understand. But again, taking that money away is not going to solve the problems. It's only going to exacerbate it. And so that would be my first point.
More money. Okay. Sounds like the whole we need to distribute wealth better.
And the second point I would like to make is that I think that we should refuse companies that are getting financial money, such as bailouts or such as contracts from the government. We should cap their CEO pay. This was a proposal made by John McCain, I believe, in 2008, and also Bernie Sanders made a similar proposal much more recently. And I would be for that. I think that would help, keep war profiteering to a minimum. That's my opinion there.
That was in reference to the bailout, not actual.
Well, no.
War companies, correct?
Or let me.
I mean, the McCain bill in 2008.
So yes, that was 2008 was for bailouts, but Senator Bernie Sanders would deny federal contracts to any company that pays their CEO excessively. I'm not sure exactly what that excessively means in this. I'd have to delve into the bill, but that was something that was done in, I believe, 2020.
So I'm curious. Who holds the most power in Congress right now? The Republicans or Democrats?
The Democrats.
Democratic Party.
So why is this not a priority for the Democratic platform right now?
Well, the Republicans were just in charge. It wasn't a priority for them either.
Yeah, well, I mean, technically it is. You can look at and reference the bill that John Ossoff currently has in the Senate. S34 and 94 ban Congressional Stock Trading Act. There might be another one in the House. You had referenced Nancy Pelosi. Yeah, I don't give a shit when she does it fucking either. I don't think politicians should be allowed to do this. I do highly disagree with the idea of like we need to stop paying our politicians. I definitely don't agree with the idea with Wick that we need to start paying our politicians more. I would say that it should probably be based off of a middle class income from the state in which you live, however that's determined. For my area in Omaha, Nebraska, that'd be about $54,000. You can get a decent living off of that. It allows you to be more connected to the population around you as far as like understanding the problems and issues.
$1,000 more than what you just described as the average is not a comfortable living.
Yeah,
I didn't say it was comfortable.
Are you where he lives?
The point though is that you're trying to attract talent, right? And like if you guys believe in a market economy, you have to pay like what the equivalent job would pay in the private sector, right? Like if you want somebody who's remotely competent or intelligent.
I want a representative government. I don't want attracting talent. I want a representative government.
Well, then you don't like that's got nothing to do with our government, like really.
Well, actually, it has a lot. So if I could just finish my point before we start cutting on the numbers, like I will finish my point. Thanks, appreciate it. The only reason that I would say it should be a middle class income or right around the median of the area that you are is because it helps you understand the majority of your constituents a little bit better and more effectively. We can argue about whether or not that's efficient. We can talk about whether or not that's, the idea of a market. Yeah, sure, fine, but this is not a market. This is government. Those are two separate things.
No, they're not two separate things. They are exactly
in competition. You do not want your government represented and working like a market.
They're literally in competition with one another, and that's the problem.
I mean, yeah, it kind of logically follows that politicians do work on a job market, right? Because this is something that's supposed to be doing, as a career or full time.
If you decide like that's
they're a legislative body, right? They're supposed to be,
sure,
and I mean they do spend a lot of time doing and making policy, sitting in.
Can we focus this? Because I feel like we're already on step 9. We haven't even started on step 1. What's wrong with politicians making money in the first place?
So it's not the fact that they make money; it's how they do so. I think some of the more
I would agree with.
Yes.
Right? So I don't understand the politicians have to have an income strip to X amount of dollars every year.
I'm very much against that, but I would be for
argue with that point.
I would be for restricting them buying stocks or purchasing shares in companies and things like that. I would also be for some sort of moratorium.
One at a time. Why?
Why the IT?
Well, because
the IT word out.
Say one more time. I'm sorry. So one of the reasons I would be for is, for example, forbidding them for investing in different companies or buying stocks or options in different companies.
Those are the same thing. Buying stocks.
Yes, I understand. But that would it gives them incentives to be favorable to the companies that they are invested in, if that makes sense with you. And so it just creates this conflict of interest that I'm not comfortable with.
Sure, but we've already got laws to handle that. It's a laws banning insider trading. Why wouldn't you
just
strengthen? It seems like you just need to strengthen those laws if there's some.
Yeah, it seems like they do need to be strengthened, considering.
I don't think it even applies to politicians right now, right?
But it absolutely does. What do you mean? Yeah, politicians are subject to the same laws about insider trading that everyone else is.
They are. Yeah, as far as I know and understand, yeah, they are.
Well, I feel like we don't enforce those rigidly enough because
they're not insiders.
That might be true. It actually might be very difficult to prove insider trading. So if you're talking about reforming insider trading laws, that's fine. I could see areas where that's necessary.
Yeah,
but just ban politicians from having business.
It should follow that people.
It's not the same thing as having businesses. It's sending your capital to
partial ownership.
Wait. So the thing I'm trying to say here is that the people who make policy in these countries, I feel like they should constitute as an insider because they can directly swing legislation in favor of whatever corporate interests they have, right? And this doesn't just apply to the military-industrial complex. This applies to other things too. Like the Turk said, we're talking big tech, we're talking whatever. I feel like that absolutely constitutes insider trading.
That's overly broad. They constitute as insiders insofar as they have privileged information, or they have or they try to affect some sort of change, or can affect some sort of change that's going to financially benefit them. Not just that they can do it at all, but they have to actually do it. That's what an insider is. So if you're just a politician and you have stocks,
LSP, can I ask you?
Your stocks
LSP, it's different. For example, not every politician would have that swing, but when we're talking on a federal level, we're talking a governing body that can quite literally change legislation. I wouldn't say willy-nilly, but assuming they have enough votes, to
Sure.
pass a policy or whatever, right?
Right.
They are effectively able to become insiders like that. Like it would be
Yeah,
different for me if I was like a mayoral candidate, right?
No,
I'm
I
not
understand.
exactly
I agree with that.
paying for
Yeah,
Tesla.
they're able to, but you're like, my issue is you seem to use the word insider with like a really broad brush to say that just because they're politicians, they necessarily are insiders. So any trading is an insider trade.
The risk
Well,
of
but they're also
this is-
inherently kind of like industries will inherently flock and gravitate towards them on advancements that they do want to make, and what regulation will end up like
Yeah, but of
helping
course,
them make
like-
those advancements. So
Yeah, but you
when we
wanna-
talk
you
about
wanna
like
hear from
having
me.
the advantage of being an insider, it's not only just the fact that they have investments or stocks. Completely fine with regular citizens having this. It's the authority in which they make our laws and the ability of which they have the undue influence or the ability to talk to people that are in industries and sectors where you
Sure.
end up losing public trust. And as of right now, we have a huge public trust issue. So this is one of the ways, maybe not the best way, but I would say in an important way in which we can start to reaffirm that trust within the public of governments.
I mean, is that the only purpose of it, is to make people trust their
No,
politicians more?
not at all. But it is one
Well,
of the
it's
purposes.
a
But we
pretty fucking
do have
important
to.
one.
It seems like a
Yeah,
meme.
What's
but
the current approval rating of Congress right now?
It's like 25%. It's never any
Yeah.
higher. That's the point.
We
It's all
don't,
shit.
we don't trust our politicians. Us paying them a good amount of money is not increasing the amount of trust that we are actually providing them. I want to go back to LSP's root question here. Why are we paying politicians? A wage is for trading a known value or object for a certain body of work. If we're not satisfactory with that body of work or what we're getting out from this thing, the wage is either cut, reduced, or we find a new replacement for that labor, right?
I think in a
Well, remote
democracy, you're
rights
just supposed
talked
to
about
find
the
a
problem.
replacement.
But you
Remote
run
rights
into
talked
the
about this.
issue of who
I-
ends up representing and who ends up getting elected. If you
Who
don't
ends
have
up representing
a
is
wage that is relevant towards the regular people, you end up having a skewed government and it closer to an oligarchy because
Yeah,
I'm
but
you're
curious,
not
why is
reaching up.
regular?
Can you just let me fucking finish?
Yeah,
Okay,
but I mean,
You
you're
end
missing
up
the
having
point.
a
Though.
screwed oligarchy in a sense.
You're
not
completely
fully,
missing
but
the
if you have to run your own campaign, if you have to worry about finances while you're elected, you're not going to go and work for that job. That becomes a problem because you're not representative of the people that you are representing.
Well,
So
it's not just-
no, please.
okay, LSP shoot.
Okay, I'm sorry. I realize I'm bullying a lot of your time. Yeah, I don't see why you would want a politician to be representative of the rest of the people. The rest of the people are fucking stupid. I want elites. I want somebody who is very well educated, who's very well suited to run this country. And I think this idea that
Of the
we have
people.
to we have to artificially engineer poor politicians in order to get that representation that we
We
so
don't have to
desire. You're in a democracy.
artificially
Just
do it.
vote for that representation.
Right, but then you have to deal with the issue of a governing body that is not as aware of the people and the general population. You run
Well,
the
they're
risk
aware.
of
They want to win an election, and then so they have to follow it. That's the
My
point.
take
They have
on
to
this
make
is
it
that-
clear.
That's not necessarily
But
true.
being
There-
being like a poor person in the society doesn't make you more aware of the conditions of the society. In fact, I'd say it limits your ability to understand the conditions of the society because it limits your access to the resources
didn't
necessary
say
to
that
So
live
you
Even
should
from
from
elect
back to
more
war.
elite people that are not going to give you what you're actually looking for and asking for. That sounds like a great solution.
Well, I mean
Yeah,
that's what we
so-
have.
well,
and
I mean,
think
if your
it's-
solution is reducing or cutting politicians' wages, they're just going to resort to alternative measures.
Exactly,
arguably
exactly.
more
No, it's
corrupt.
called getting
Tons
rid
of
of
research
and
on this, and it
disin-
all
So-
says that if you
disincentivizing
pay
people from staying in Congress. They
So
need to
one
know-
of the
politicians
reasons
pay decreases the amount of corruption. Like this is like a consistent variable or like a consistent trend that you can find across all kinds of governments all around the world. Like it's
we have data on this.
Yes,
This
it's
isn't just
constantly
me pulling
shown
shit
the
out of my
same thing.
ass.
You
I mean,
raise
it
you
literally
raise the
logically
wage of the
follows that-
politicians, and you get less corruption.
Again, it logically follows that if you resort to like reducing people's ability to have like a good pay, they're going to resort to more illegal or extra legal measures to do things. This applies with the general populace too.
And the fact that we're talking about the wealth of politicians in relation to their income is just proves that you guys have no idea what the scale of wealth is in this country. Like
Yeah.
$150,000 a year job is nothing. Like these
Yeah,
people will make 10, 20, $30 million a
Yeah.
year in taxed income, right? Like
Right.
of expansion of their investments alone. Like the
Sure.
the income
So why
amount
do
of
we pay
$100,000 a
them?
year
They
is
don't
nothing.
need the money.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
so-
don't need the money on average. I'd say you're right. However, like
So let's
theoretically,
keep paying them. That's a great idea.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
but
yeah,
sir,
yeah.
okay,
No,
if I
wait,
could just
because-
interject right here,
I-
one of the reasons they don't need the money is because they built relationships, harmful, corrupt relationships with different businesses that give them all sorts of extra perks.
It's not just that, too.
It's-
But wait, if we're talking about grassroots movements, wouldn't it be better to incentivize a more grassroots working class politician with an actual paying wage? So that way there's incentive for people to serve in government, especially ones that are from the working class.
Pretty
because
sure
if
that
this
happened in
serves
New
as like an
Jersey.
increase in wage for people to have a better career, then, you know, I would like to pay $150,000 to the person who's probably not making anywhere near that and has a definite better understanding of the struggle of the working class right
And
now.
we want the best and the brightest people too. You know what I mean? Like we don't want the MTGs of the world. And like the reason that you end up with them is stuff like this.
We have
Stuff like
a
what?
very
Stopping
corrupt
them from
system.
buying trading stocks?
No,
Yes.
allowing the corruption of the actual the
Who
corruption
are you to
of the
tell that
actual
that group of
economy is
people
just
who they can or
amplified because we
cannot
can
vote
see
for?
what
We're their
politics.
Hold on, I
employers.
couldn't just
They're
hear you
forced to
revolt.
report. That's why we're talking about them. But like other people, this amount of corruption goes on between like CEOs of different companies all the time.
Revolt Rise, are you part of MTG's congressional district?
No,
Then why do you have the right to condemn the people that voted for her for
I didn't have the right
being
to. I'm not
representing
condemning
them?
the people that voted for her
You're,
in any
you're
way.
saying that we're voting for these
Condemning the
people
system
that
that
are
fucking
dumb
produces
and are
corrupt
not
people
good
like
for
her.
being in Congress, and it's like you don't have that
I'm
right.
sorry.
Dude.
Did you think she was not corrupt? Do you think this is not an example of fucking hypocrisy and corruption
not
that's
what I
like pretty
said.
abhorrent? Yes, it is.
That's
It's
not
exactly
what
what
I
you're
said.
saying.
No,
Well,
I said
then
by
you're
the
not
amount of-
attacking anything that I said. You're just making something up now.
No,
Yeah, it feels like a really strange random attack on like Revolt's character to suppose that he was making an attack on the constituency.
Y'all are
Yeah, I
doing
said nothing about
straw
any
man.
patterns.
Going
I've
straight
only
to
ever
Revolt Rise's
criticized the
point.
system.
Yeah, I was
No.
gonna say it seems like an effect of the system that people vote in a certain way based on things that they're like the stimuli they're subjected to from the politician that influences them to vote for them. Whether they're not corrupt by the time they reach office has no bearing on the constituency itself.
And I said nothing of corruptness being in it. My condemnation of what Revolt Rise said is he's saying he wants an elite to be the representative of these other people, and like, no, they voted for that
was me.
person to be there. So you can
Well, that's
pat
was
your
some-
hand and
that
vote
was
for
He's
not-
talking
somebody
about
else.
more in a sense of like the government as a whole, not just like this individual congressperson, right?
Right. And
Okay,
what,
so
what I'm also
again,
what I'm
go
also
ahead.
saying though is that like it's obvious that she is not a person that is like has an extensive amount of experience in industry in a leadership role or education. And, like that's not a fucking that's not an ad hom. It's a description of her resume.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's
So-
I'm going to pull up her approval
Part
rating in
of
her
the
district.
problem we have here is the system we have in place incentivizes bad behavior in our politicians. If we can put a system or a justice system so that it no longer incentivizes this bad behavior, a lot of it, not all of it, will disappear. We want a system in place that incentivizes our politicians, our representatives, the people we vote in office, to behave in ways that help the people that put them in office. And right now, our system just does not do that.
And that's why expanding insider trading laws would be an absolute benefit to the like member of the general populace, so that politicians don't vote in ways that negatively affects them.
I
Wait,
agree.
the
But I
regular
think that
populace is not affected by insider trading. So
I think-
regular
So,
populace
so
is
going
affected
back to
by, like,
MTG,
bullion, gold, and
she
crime
was
and stuff
elected
like
by
that.
nearly 75% of her congressional district in Georgia. So
Do you have
they-
current approval ratings?
for her getting voted in, she received 75% of the vote. If you look at the
Once
national
again,
ratings,
current
yes,
approval rating.
Correct.
the national
What's the
rating doesn't
implication if
matter.
people don't
It
approve?
matters
No,
on
I-
who voted her in. That's why
yeah,
it's a
I care about-
representative representative
have-
democracy.
Do they have polling for her currently? That's
I
what
can
I'm
keep
asking.
looking for it. She
Why
got
do you care about
That's
that?
0%. Like,
I'll
she,
keep-
like,
I'll
the
keep-
Turks
Why are we
removing her
focusing
from
on
the
this one
election.
Yeah, I
person?
was gonna say, like, Turk, why
the
would you
entire
use
topic
that
is
statistic?
MTG.
I could tell everyone that I'm gonna get them a big titty goth girlfriend, and that would make my approval rating shoot to the moon. But that's
Dude,
not
kid,
exactly,
you-
Well, what?
That's-
Okay.
Yeah.
that's not implicit of how
Let's-
much people like me now.
Well, it's just wonderful. I don't know how relevant that is.
I
but
love
go-
anybody who gets me a big titted hot girlfriend.
Yeah.
Well,
I
the
approve.
point was that the Turk said that she had a 75% approval rating or voting. I don't know.
She was
75%
elected
rating
So
or
as I
voted
understand
for
it,
her
didn't she
Well,
run
MTG
unopposed?
MTG was
She
simply
might have.
the example to talk about war profiteering and the political system as we go. We're getting bogged down in these fucking stupid details. Honestly, MTG is just a super microscopic part of the problem. It's an example. It's not the problem itself. So we can focus on the symptom all day, but we're never going to cure the fucking problem if we keep going, well, Marjorie Taylor Greene, do her representatives really want her in or not? That doesn't fucking matter. It has nothing to do with the problem. The problem is we have a system in place, and I'll repeat it again, that incentivizes bad behavior because we have corporations and companies that are in bed with our politicians that are encouraging them financially and in other ways to make decisions that are at odds with helping the people they are supposed to represent. And it's shitty. And we need to fucking
So we need to
fix
talk
it.
about the policies that we want to pass, right? Which is why I said a giant increase on insider trading legislation and probably a cap on corporate donations.
All right. Well, let's just do this and let's just see if we all agree with the problem at first. There are two ways usually that people admit that politicians are bribed. One is the future prospect of going and working for the industry that in which they are kind of like sort of regulating, although it's a very when you're a politician, you're able to regulate every industry, but they seem to gravitate towards what their committee seats are. And then two is via corporate donations. This money is not specifically given to the individual politician, as in this money goes into their bank account. It is given through two ways. It is given to their campaign fund for re-election, and then it is also given in the form of what super PACs, which are able to spend as much money as they want to say that this person represents our PAC, whatever that may be. It may be for veterans, it may be for oil workers, whatever the case. They best represent our interest. Do you two disagree? Does anybody disagree with those ideas about like what we're talking about, political corruption?
I'm wondering on what basis we say corporate donations or even jobs working for industries after like a career in politics. Why are those corrupt?
It incentivizes them to be a little more favorable and lenient towards the idea of regulating that industry for the promise of a career in that industry. It doesn't necessarily have to be a spoken promise, but this is something that we do kind of see a very large revolving door as far as like when people exit Congress or the Senate, they do end up going and working for larger companies.
But what would you say if I said that's a good thing? That you want people
I would ask you if you think that this is a problem.
No. So I think generally
okay, sure. So
if you let me explain.
Yeah, no, I'm saying that we disagree. That's it. Go ahead.
Okay. I think generally the sort of people you want to be attracted to these kinds of industries are the people with the knowledge, the know-how to, see what the laws are, the ins and outs of every regulation, the ins and outs of every detail. You want people who are best qualified for these kinds of jobs. When it comes to jobs like that, let's say regulatory jobs, you do want somebody who is responsible for tasking the laws or creating the laws and understanding the laws, because those people are going to have the most insight into what the future might hold for changes in that industry. And those people are also going to be the ones who can best advise you on how not to run afoul of the law in those industries, which is a good thing. You want people following the laws.
Right. I don't care about the company's interest. I care more about the public and governance interest. So do you disagree on the idea that there is a possibility of corruption from the standpoint of the government? I understand that it would be effective and efficient for the companies in order to have those people behind them and working for them. I don't disagree with that. I'm asking from the stance of governments and regulation, do you believe that that sort of tit-for-tat kind of exchange of, oh, I was elected, therefore I have a high chance of having this career, in the idea of governments, is that a problem?
Okay, so you asked two questions. You asked first if I see a problem, if I see that that's corrupt. Right, or I see there's a possibility of corruption. There's always a possibility of corruption.
Of course.
But to the other point, no, I think it serves the public's interest to have people, regulators, who are knowledgeable about what the laws are. It is in the public's interest that businesses do well.
Yeah, that very well may be the case now. And you don't seem to believe that may that you don't seem to believe that could have a negative effect as far as like a holding back of possible positive.
No, I already said it could. It could.
Yeah. Okay. So
I just don't think that means it's a blanket does, right? Just because it could.
Yeah. No, of course not.
It does. Right. And I wouldn't describe that as corruption either, because I feel like I have a standard for corruption that you guys just don't meet. I don't think a politician working in an industry after they get out of their career in politics is necessarily corrupt, or even taking corporate donations is necessarily corrupt. I think that's a real stretch on what corruption actually is.
Okay, so you don't agree with the idea.
Go ahead, LSP, is that it creates perverse incentives for these people, and that while it might not result in corruption, the risk increases drastically. If I were king of the world, which I am not, unfortunately, our lives would all be better if under my authoritarian rulership. If I were, what I would do are three things. One, I would pay politicians more to attract better people who are more interested and more aware and better educated. Two, I would prevent them from trading stock while they are a politician, and probably a couple years after as well. And 3, I would put a moratorium of about 5 to 10 years before they can join companies or corporations after they leave office. And those are the 3 things I think would reduce corruption.
I can get behind you on those first 2 points. That last point just seems like totally useless.
It's actually the last point is what we have right now. I think it's about 5 years.
Oh, do we? Oh, well, that's good.
Yeah, Biden put an EO out about that, and I forget what the specifics are, but
it's not binding law, right? It's a policy for like the.
It is.
Was that a recent thing?
Like the Trump.
Yeah, it was one of his first. It was in the big bundle.
Okay,
of
so it was a recent.
It's like a populist reform,
which is vastly different. Well, let me go back and ask you, LSP, with those the way that I had defined that terms of like corruption, as far as like those 2 things that we were talking about. As far as like political donations and then going and working in a promise kind of job, would you say that those are out of the realm of reason and consideration of corruption, or do I seem seem pretty fairly grounded?
Yeah, so I think I don't disagree that those are avenues for corruption. I think you just need to be more focused with your language. I think you load it too much to say something is definitively corrupt when something is just an avenue for corruption, but doesn't necessarily mean it in and of itself is corrupt. Yes, a political donation can be corrupt.
Of course,
right? But that doesn't mean political donations from corporations are corrupt. I think that's right.
And again, if it sounds so solid, that's just in the fact and manner in which kind of like people speak. Maybe I do need to make more qualifiers that say may. My point is within the realm of reason, and again, the idea of governance as a whole, and assuring that you have the public trust. These 2 things do seem to be a big underminer of the public trust. So as long as they're within the realm of reason, I believe that they would be within the realm of reason of subject to regulation.
But we can get way down in like is it corrupt, isn't it corrupt, what's the intent, blah 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 discussion for days. The point is the appearance of impropriety, which I like absolutely do not disagree that there is like an inherent like appearance of impropriety anytime a politician takes any money from a corporation. So let's ban corporations being able to give money. Why do corporations have rights to donate to a campaign anyway? The stupid second point is that like instead of trying to make politicians poorer, right? Like we should try to make the public richer. And like what we should do instead is have it maybe mandatory that politicians, when they get into office, have to sign over all of their assets except for like their house, you know what I mean? Or like maybe their house and a car or something, and like sign everything over that goes into a trust that's managed by whoever. And we should have the same trust available to buy into from the American public so that we can make investments, either like giant public investments on our behalf that was maybe used to subsidize programs or whatever, or have just the ability as an individual to invest in this type situation.
Their homes should be put as Airbnbs for $1. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, something like that. Sure.
Yeah, I would vote for that. That's a good.
I mean, if we want to go to the abstract, I fucking suppose. I just feel like when you have a presented bill in the Senate as of right now, that's a little bit more realistic.
Especially in the military, especially talking about military contractors, and especially talking about defense contractors and aerospace industry stuff. A lot of what they deal with is top secret, and so it's only done in committee, like secret committee meetings, right? And so that information is never made to be public. So we can never actually prosecute like any of this insider trading or alleged insider trading because nobody can hear about the information.
I don't know how realistic that would be.
That's the case that we're kind of talking about now, isn't it? Like, didn't she have access because of her position in Congress to information about the war that wasn't public information?
It was pretty public information that Russia was surrounding Ukraine's borders. I mean, that's not a
right. But
that's been going on for a while.
It had been oscillating and it had plateaued, right? And when she was able to buy it, right, at essentially the bottom, and then it saw a huge spike as soon as it became public information, and that's the point.
Well, this was kind of the part of the problem was it wasn't, and again, this is why I was saying that not necessarily all a blind trust isn't necessarily a cure-all. It depends on how that blind trust worked. Because I believe in the story it said that she did not purchase the stock, that she had a portfolio manager, and then they did purchase the stock, right? So
that's egregious in a lot of other examples that can be cited.
It could be, but
going into COVID, there was like a specific instance with a bunch of Republican senators and that were like overheard by staff having phone calls in the hallway ordering stocks for Pfizer and stuff like that. Like after the meeting.
I think Nancy Pelosi did that same thing too. Yeah.
Yeah, Nancy Pelosi is a giant piece of shit. I think she's like obviously like one of the most detestable people in the entire country. It's disgusting that California keeps electing her, and that's why there's 100,000 refugees from California.
Even harder than you do.
We need a more educated person. We got to pay. for more
Oh,
or for
right.
replacement.
So
for
hashtag
more.
let's turn every politician's assets into sovereign wealth funds. Woohoo!
Yeah. I mean, not
Or you could
necessarily
just,
to
I don't know,
confiscate
make a
them, but to at
reasonable
least
change
prevent this
to,
kind
like,
of stuff.
it feels like there's like so many more reasonable things y'all could be doing. But
Oh, like change legislation, LSP? Do you agree?
yeah, well, that's exactly what we're talking about. Yeah,
Why?
there we
Hey,
go.
Well,
I
I'm
mean-
talking about. I'm talking about
Hey,
getting
look,
to where you
let's
can,
throw that
you
one
can
out
have
there.
you can
Yeah,
have a
perhaps
presumed.
you would strengthen some of the regulatory tools for insider trading, and
Yeah,
you probably pass some sort of transparency law so that politicians have to make available financial disclosures, right? Which is
Right,
only
but
something
until that
that's
law passes,
honored but
we
not
can't.
required.
Even when that law passes, what are you going to do about top secret information?
Well,
What
there are-
can I do about top secret information?
That's the point. Is if you allow them any access to their portfolio, you're going to have to assume that there's stuff like this going on, right? Or at least it'll be like reasonable to assume that there's stuff like this going on.
Okay, then you would have a watchdog for it, right? Like we already got that for the fucking Solicitor General, don't we? Like it would
there's-
seem like you would just have the
there are
same
mechanisms
watchdog
Well,
tools we already have to look at politicians and make
The
sure they're
fewer-
not trading
Yeah, but the fewer
based on
people,
privileged information.
the fewer people we have looking at these things, the more risk there is of the person, like who watches the watchdogs, so to speak.
Well, you gotta
like,
have that no matter what, though.
Well,
Wick.
no, you don't. You can just again prevent them from trading in stocks for a period of time. You know what I
Sure,
mean?
but
Like,
I mean, if we're
you can
if
solve
we're
this
all in
problem
agreement-
without creating so many different agencies or so many different
sure. Like
ways
if we're
of-
all in agreement that this is again within the realm of reason that we were kind of talking
It's
about.
not
and the
about you guys
appearance
don't
of-
have to agree with it for it to be fucking right. Like we keep like we need to agree on these. No, we don't. We need to actually do these things. We need to actually get these things done. And we all have just one vote. At least all of us Americans here. I don't know about those filthy Canadians or whatever. But like Revolt brings up a very good point that because of the sensitive information that gets dealt with by these politicians, that we, the public, do not and frankly should not have access to some of this, then we have to create a system that has incentivizes them to behave well even when we can't look over their shoulder at the time, and to prevent them from engaging in bad behavior.
So pay them more money, because it's completely insignificant to what they're already making, so that they can make better choices. Yeah, that'll
but
work.
if we restrict
wait.
their ability to
There is
trade stock,
I-
have transparency. I'm sure you do.
Hang on. There is some truth to the idea that there are people who go into politics that don't make money competitively on the market for what their skills are, right? That you want to attract people with talent, and people with talent don't tend to go to politics to make their money. They tend to go to some other industry that's going to pay them a lot more because they're better suited to it, right?
Yes,
Congress,
Politic adjacent things
or
is the
something like
problem.
that. But I mean, they could easily be making 3 times that or more in other industries. So there is some truth to that. If you want to attract talent, it wouldn't be a bad idea to pay politicians more. Now, it's not necessarily something I support, but you don't need to glibly dismiss that like there's no basis in that, because there absolutely is.
And I don't necessarily think that we should pay them more, but I think we should avoid any situation where we're going to pay them drastically less. And that would be the case if you're going to take away their ability to have investments at all. But again, I think that what you can do to ameliorate some of the greed or potential corruption issues is make it so that they're investing in something that is a broad cross section of the American economy, and therefore there's benefit to essentially everybody, or they're incentivized to get benefit for everybody.
Start a sovereign wealth fund. That'll help the American.
Right.
Who's
No
on
joke.
board with me?
Like why?
I'm not even kidding either. Yeah.
Why
You don't
Hillary
wanna say
Clinton
what I
had
got.
an idea for that. I mean, that's not a bad idea. Hillary Clinton actually had an idea for that called Alaska for America, which didn't kick off, unfortunately, because Hillary Clinton lost and she couldn't make the math work. But that's not a bad idea in and of itself either. Huh?
Oh, I mean, it's not. I mean, honestly, I think that a lot of government, if we had some sort of faculty or thing that made government investments able to produce some kind of dividend or a support net for Americans, like a sovereign wealth fund, it would definitely be a beneficial thing.
Oh, wait, Obama even had something similar to that called My RA, which was like an IRA. Yeah. It was like this little gimme IRA account for this small group of. It was like a pilot program, but think of how genius an idea that is.
I mean, it works perfect. The problem with Obama's and the liberals in general, plan or way of taking that forward, is that they were going to give it directly to their private wealth investors and let them make huge fees and fund off of the fund.
Wait, what do I care if they make huge fees off the funds as long as the American people have investments? If the American people have investments and it grows their wealth, I don't care if private investors are making money too.
I don't care if they're making money. I mean, I care if they're making billions of dollars for free. That's what I care about. I don't care if they're like if they make a competitive wage, and that's why I think
that's how
$1 trillion for free.
Well, I
No,
mean,
it's
like
a matter of
the-
scale, though, right?
Isn't the right approach to this to have a competitively salaried position within the governmental office itself, to have people who are expert investors function on the job market and be able to actually do this for people?
I don't think either one of them are saying that they're not for that, though.
Well, I
Yeah,
was gonna say, it feels like there's a weird cutoff when we have one reasonable solution amongst ourselves that we can just agree on here.
there's the cutoff is the difference between, does the job exist? Like, when the person that's doing that job, do they get a paycheck that says like the United States government on the bottom, or do they get one that says Goldman Sachs on the bottom? That's the difference.
The one should say government state or United States government paycheck. Yeah,
Right. That's where I lie.
the correct approach. And it obviously has to be competitive too if we want actual
Now,
people.
we
who
are
can
talking
do
about
that.
two different things, though, as far as like the actual subject of the panel, correct? We're talking about
Yeah,
they're not connected. Their actual salary is vastly different from
Whoa,
the actual
whoa, no,
investment
no,
that
no,
they're
no.
able to make.
No.
Correct.
These things are connected.
Okay.
These things are
But then-
connected.
yeah, they
they're
were.
connected. But the
say
point,
that they
like, I
were.
become a politician. When I show up, I'm going to get my salary and I'm going to have my investments. And if I do things that will benefit my investments, like, the idea is that like what benefits my investments should also benefit my constituents. And like, and there's a whole nother level of political corruption here that exists that like we haven't actually taken into consideration. And I don't even know where everybody is morally on it. But what about things like a Bernie Sanders situation where Bernie's morally against the war industry? However, he and spoken out like for years and years and years. However, he went out of his way to help New Hampshire get the contracts at GE for building the F-35 engines. So it's like he was doing stuff, and like some of the pushback that he got was that they had accepted a donation from GE, and like and it was like kind of a scandal in his first election bid. So it was like that kind of corruption. Like, if you're being corrupted to benefit like jobs and benefit the people of your constituency, like is that a problem too?
Revolt. Is that
Well, no,
corruption though? To because he was representing his constituents'
He
interests.
changed his mind on a vote.
Every
because of-
politician would say they're representing their constituents.
I
interests.
understand, but in this case, he brought jobs to his constituents, which is kind of his job, is it not?
It's also his
Somewhat,
job to
but-
represent their moral interests.
I
and the interests of the
understand.
country.
Well,
I understand, but we already agree. Well, I thought we already agreed. Maybe we didn't. But that having a defense industry in and of itself isn't a moral sin. It's when you get into these deals as a politician, where again your votes can affect the wars. We can get ourselves into wars and things like that, and then the corporation that you have stock invested in makes huge profit, and then you make huge profit, and so there's a conflict of interest there. But Bernie Sanders, or any politician really who wants to bring in jobs to their constituency, that's their job. I wouldn't say that's a corrupt thing to do, and it's okay to change your mind. It's okay. I want my politicians, when they get information, to change their mind if the information presents the problems in a new light. The problem
curious.
I think we have a lot of these times is politicians who don't change their minds, who have set in their ideology like their fucking religion, like it's their fucking God, and never change their mind, never change their positions, never work with the other side or anything, and they cement themselves into place and they're never moved. I
what do
think
you
that
want to
does
get
a lot
to,
more.
LSP?
I was just going to ask a question of Wick, but he kind of just answered it, so never mind.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there you go. Good.
I
the
mean, to
question
throw
you
my
typed-
2 cents. Okay, never
Go
mind.
ahead, Dylan. No,
Okay,
it's fine,
thank you.
Dylan.
I was
Go
gonna say I feel like I'm under contributing tonight, which is
ahead.
you know,
Go for it.
Typical leftist.
Get
not-
your jabs in when you can, as long as they're
Typical
good strikes.
Well,
that's
I
all
feel like
care
I'm
about.
under contributing considering my self-importance. Okay, so there is that. However, I will say I
How
think
does
it's
it feel?
important.
How does it feel to come from the inferior country too? And like where you guys don't have the benefit of this vast defense industry.
They've got a pretty good defense.
Oh no,
industry
I
in
have the
Canada.
benefit of your vast defense industry, not ours.
Yeah, there you
So-
go.
Typical leftist.
Typical leftist. That's right. Typical leftist leeching off other systems. God damn. No, I just feel like a correct approach to these kind of things is I mean there's obviously more I would say morally superior investments one could make into infrastructural projects and things like that work domestically. And like you said earlier, Revolt, I think a good example was the internet. I feel like investing into companies, and if politicians were to legislate in ways that would incentivize companies to work on expanding projects to help the general American public as opposed to building more tanks Soviet style, you know, like that would probably be generally a better investment on the behalf of the politicians.
Can I ask you a question, Dylan?
legislation. Yeah.
Do you feel that any military spending is morally justifiable?
I think that lots of military spending is justifiable. I just feel like the ways we handle these things in terms of our current governance is some of it's unjustifiable in terms of the like casualties it creates, and that's
Wait, can you give like a specific example? Like,
Sure.
is it unjustifiable to create a drone?
No, it's unjustifiable for Ronald Reagan to fund the Nicaraguan Contras.
Oh, okay.
But that was
I feel like
that's extra governmental though. Like, that didn't come from the national budget, like specifically. Like, and that's like the best example you can give of. Like, they literally went out of their way to steal guns, sell them to Iran, take the money from Iran, and give it to the Contras, and that completely skirted the entire federal government. So, like, I don't think you can.
That's kind of the types of things I'm talking about here, and these are the extrajudicial immoral things that we don't have our our eyes on as much as we should.
Yeah, but like,
we had a whole congressional hearing about it. What are you talking about?
We almost had another president fucking impeached because
like it was a pretty big deal.
Yeah. Oliver North still collects a paycheck from Washington D.C. though. Like, so don't
kind of
that big of a deal. And the point overall is like, why were we going in there? And the reason was they were threatening to nationalize their copper industry. And at the time, we were building out the infrastructure necessary to build telephones and build out the the high tech industry in the United States. And we needed that copper. So
right.
In Nicaragua?
Yeah.
I think you guys are we're missing the forest for the trees here. It was just basic containment policy. The Contras were fighting against the Sandinistas. The Sandinistas were Marxists. We had our foreign policy at the time was run by something called domino theory, which is this idea that if one
things can be true
to communist.
Yeah.
There's non-Marxist countries with copper.
Again, getting back to the idea of investing in politicians currently.
Hey, look, scary
comment.
Not that I don't
like domino theory. It's so scary to like leftists that you guys have to invent like another motivation. Like it actually is just as simple as like big scary Marxists for a lot of people.
Yeah. No, that's true. And they still hammer on it today, and it still works for some reason.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I'm like, hey, look, we don't disagree with that notion either. Like, I was gonna say, I'm like, big scary leftism lead to lots of bad things for those countries. So that's that. Let's talk about whatever redheaded man wanted to.
Well, no, you were
swing us back to.
You said you were fucking gonna throw out some jabs here, like throw them out.
I didn't say I was gonna throw out some jabs. Well, I just said I wanted to talk. Yeah, I just wanted to
contributions can be peaceful in nature.
That's what I was. Yeah.
So.
Well.
Look, just like the good, peaceful leftist I am, anti-intervention, blah blah blah. I'm just gonna be a nice guy tonight. All right.
I'm gonna roll all over you with
like
my superior military-industrial complex and make sure
I'm feeling very, very sweet.
Okay.
Well, but I do tend to agree with Revolt more that it was for the financial incentive. So
again, just
it's everything. It's everything. We can argue this to the day. Like, why do we go into Iraq? Oil, kind of, and like you know what I mean? Like global stability, kind of. Iran, kind of.
Venezuela.
No.
The benefit.
We tend
to like triggering to me. Prime, please.
Look, we tend to oversimplify the reasons we.
Yeah, you think?
Yeah, but it's funny because it seems like money makes the world go round, and the biggest incentives for a lot of these, extrajudicial meddling in democracies and
but the problem is, like bringing that full circle, these same companies though. The reason why I even brought that up in the first place, like these same companies whose interests are in at least somewhat represented by some of the foreign policy that we've had over the years, right? Yeah. Are also making overt and public donations to our public officials and our elected officials. Like, why are we okay with that at all? I think I think the corruption, the level of corruption would be vastly reduced, or the potential for corruption would be vastly reduced if we made it so that corporations couldn't fund politicians.
Yeah. It would restrict their free speech rights. But I mean, just a quick correction.
Right.
Like, by no stretch of the imagination was Saddam's Iraq or Daniel Ortega's Nicaragua democratic.
No. Yeah, I'm not saying.
I mean, not just with that. I was thinking more like my earlier aforementioned example of Bolivia. Huge lithium reserves that the big boys could tap into.
So you said something interesting there, LSP. You said it would restrict.
That was a democracy. I will fight anyone who says.
I don't know anything about Bolivia. Yeah, that might be the case. I'm sorry.
Yeah, ironically, Bolivia is like one of the only examples of something that we don't have.
We gotta get back to the topic. We gotta get back to the topic, Revolt. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say we don't have an actual concrete line of proof that we had any influence. Other than David Pacman being a complete piece of shit and ignoring that it was a fucking coup, and he's still a piece of shit to this day. If you watch him, you're an idiot.
Really? I seem to like him, so I'll have to
fuck David Pacman.
Okay. All right. Anyways, sorry, Wick. What were you asking?
Oh no, I was just asking LSP. He made an interesting statement that you said that restricting corporations' ability to donate money to politicians would restrict their free speech rights, and I'm curious if you could like elaborate a little bit because
Yeah, it's simple. There's two forms of donations that a corporation can make to a politician. One is to their reelection campaign, which has a hard federal limit on how much can be donated, and the other is to a super PAC, which advocates on behalf of the politician by usually purchasing like TV ads or posters or something like that.
Or cannot work in conjunction with the.
They cannot work in conjunction with a politician. Right. So the Supreme Court's already ruled on the latter, which was essentially that any limits to corporate financing of super PACs isn't a violation of their free speech. It was Citizens United case.
Correct.
And I think that ruling has done a lot of harm to the way we do business. I think that I'm 100% against the Citizens United ruling.
100%.
Okay, I'm curious. If I wanted to, like, let's say, like me, I'm LSP Incorporated. Me and my millionaire backers want to put on an advertisement about how Donald Trump has he is
stinky feet. We'll just roll with that.
Fine.
Revitalize the aluminum.
I'm trying to like think of something corrupt, but I'll actually think of something stupid. Yeah, stinky
okay.
feet. Right. And I'm clearly trying to influence the election by releasing this advertisement so close to the election. Is there anything wrong with that?
I think that it creates a lot of harm. Yes, I would say that your ability to influence the election through your money has damaged the system, because one of the bedrocks of our democracy is that one person, one vote. And when one person has millions of votes because they have millions of dollars and has that overreaching influence,
I don't get how that works.
Is he people to vote? What are you talking about? Millions of votes because he has millions of dollars.
Look, guys. I don't know if you knew this.
Much larger influence.
I don't know if you knew this, guys, or not, but Mike Bloomberg derailed Trump's whole campaign off of the fact that he couldn't grill a steak properly. Okay, I rest my case.
What about a better Trump example?
Mike Bloomberg actually did a lot for like. Well, damn, I feel like Mike Bloomberg gets a lot of unjustified hate. He actually paid a lot of the fines and stuff for like a lot of like felons and former felons in Florida who were like disbarred from voting by the state law that required them to pay back fines in order to get their voting privileges.
Okay, you guys have been completely unable to actually do the thing I wanted to talk about.
I'm sorry, Prime. It's my fault.
All right, try it again. You had said something interesting earlier, LSP. You talked about how politicians who are investing or like corruption in politicians doesn't affect the average man, the average citizen. Did you expand that?
I think what I specifically said was insider trading doesn't affect the average person. The average person is not affected by their politician doing any insider trading. That doesn't mean it's right. That doesn't mean it's ethical. But I think this was in response. The context of this was somebody was saying the politician needs to like represent the interests of like whoever it is they're representing, right? Which I don't disagree with, but like insider trading just isn't the average interest of like the average person, except maybe to like stop corruption. But most of what every constituent's interested in is the same thing, like improving schools, reducing crime, growing job opportunities, stuff like that, which is what a politician should be focused on.
And if their investments come into conflict with that?
Right. What about their investment effect?
If their investments come into conflict with that, then it's up to the voters to remove the politician. But if
no. But that's not the point. I mean, yes, if the politicians are doing a bad job, voters are supposed to do something about it. Great. Yeah. But you're saying that it doesn't necessarily affect people, but I'm saying that it does. I'm saying that where politicians decide to put their money.
Oh, I see. Fair point.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes, I see. Fair point. I understand that.
Can you like say?
No, I agree with him. I'm not addressing him. I agree with him. I didn't think of this angle. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. I think that investing in these defense contractors, wartime contractors. Excuse me, war contractors. Like the fuck, not defense. I think there is. Hold on, I'm sorry. I'm getting some background. I'm getting some feedback. All right, it's gone now. I think that to say that a company that not only causes destruction, but has a financial incentive to have more destruction. To invest in that company can't be morally neutral. It can't be ethically neutral to do that.
Why?
Can I respond to this then?
Okay.
The destruction itself is not. Destruction is.
No, I'm sorry. You're cutting in and out. Is that true for everyone else?
Let me deep throat my mic. Okay. To try to build a strong point.
He's really good at that. Go ahead. Okay.
Can you hear me better?
Mm-hmm. You're good at deep throating. Go ahead.
I am good at deep throating. I learned from you. Destruction in it of itself is not a bad thing. Destruction is very much value neutral. The impetus behind the destruction is what determines if it's a good or a bad thing. So, for example, profiting off of a country that is waging a imperialist war of conquest in order to enrich people, like that could be seen as morally bad, right? But destroying a nation that is, a dictatorship that's enslaving its people, that's using, it's holding its people hostage, and it's launching these raids against other neighboring countries, like that's destroying that country is not bad. Not in and of itself, even though that it causes destruction, it costs lives, everything I can grant to you, all of that's true. The purpose behind it determines that there's nothing wrong with it.
So
right?
To continue that thought train, contributing F-22s to Poland so that they can backfill blown airplanes in the Ukrainian air defense is a moral net good, right?
It was actually F-16s, but yes,
or whatever.
I would consider that a good thing.
Stick to computer hardware, buddy.
I got the freaking numbers wrong, dude.
Stick to the computer hardware, buddy.
As I said in my opening statement, we want to have the ability to destroy things that are attacking us, the things that want to hurt us, the things that want to
almost
kill
like
us.
a firearm as a tool, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Bad things are
have
bad.
those tools.
And we want to
have
blow
those
them all
tools,
up.
and we want them to be destructive. We want them to be able to overpower the enemy. And so investing in corporations that produce these things is not necessarily a moral sin.
So I should be able to donate money and provide money and investments into Remington Manufacturing so that they can make more AR-15s, so we can make more self-defense rifles.
Yes.
Sure, as long as they market them correctly and responsibly, then apparently it doesn't seem to be a legal problem either.
I just like seeing Prime's head blow up.
I think he's fine.
So and fucking Remington anyway. Give it to Daniel Defense.
That's overpriced stuff.
I think that we have I think if this was in a vacuum, I think if we separated these companies, right, who are making a product, a widget that happens to be bombs, right? I think if we separate that from history, then that makes sense. Then what you said makes sense. But if we look at in the context of our society, of our current politics, and our history of warfare, then no. I mean, these.
Can I ask you?
I'm not. When I'm done, maybe that might be a good time. When I'm done.
Damn, he told you, son. You're embarrassed, aren't you? Sit down.
These contractors have influence. Sorry, what? Excuse me.
War contractors.
War contractors, yes. Have influenced our politicians, right? Have put their thumb on the scale as to like where our national treasure goes, right? And it goes to what will make them more profitable. I mean, if they have a fiduciary responsibility to increase their profits, then it makes sense that for the low price of a politician, our politicians are cheap whores, right? Then you can increase your profits drastically by keeping a need. And it's not just like going to war; it's the production, right? It's making it so that our spreading themselves out across the country, so it's difficult for any particular politician to say, maybe we don't really need this. It's saying that, we have to continuously invest in this one industry, right? We have the F-16, but now we need the F-17. I know those two are, I'm just making a comparison here, but you know what I mean, right? But like the idea that we have to upgrade constantly, that it's literally just never enough. If you look at war contractors within the context of history, I think you'd realize these people or this industry is different from anything else. It's not just widgets.
No, I would
Can I
say
ask
that
a
other
question now?
industries have a very similar incremental improvements towards their technology. Medicine's one of those. Types of mechanical devices such as cars, all sorts of other technologies follow a very similar development upgrade path. And it just so happens that the defense industry, not the war industry, also has the necessity of developing new technologies in order to counter other technologies that are being produced.
Got that right.
What do you think would
I'm
happen?
not saying that that's a mistake. I'm not arguing against innovation. I agree that
innovation requires funds, capital, investment.
Yeah, and we can decide to invest that without outside of a war making routine, right? Like a war infrastructure. Like we don't actually need to do it that way. It's just the way. It's just that war and throughout any society, throughout history, is the thing that takes up the most resources, right? It's preparing for war. It's maintaining war readiness. It's actually executing a war. It's recovering from a war. All of that takes up a mass amount of resources, the most resources. So that's where innovation comes from.
I'm curious,
So
Prime,
I just want to ask you, what do you think would happen, Prime, if today, in the world we live in now, you wanted to concentrate in the world we live in now with all the historical context and all that thing, all the baggage, if we stopped innovating, if we stopped investing into the war industrial complex entirely, if we just stopped today, what do you think would happen in 5 years from now?
You could nationalize. You could nationalize. You could actually just build these things.
Do you think that's a realistic option?
Yeah, actually, I do. Yeah, it is. No, I mean, like,
wait.
Your hypothetical.
Wait a
minute, hold on. Your hypothetical was that we stop investing altogether. Is that?
No, it's not.
Okay, great. So then, at the same time, then I think we should nationalize them.
So I would agree with you that the war industrial complex as it stands has a lot of problems. We need to fix it, but simply de-investing in them or nationalizing them, no, I do not think that's the right way, because we will lose a lot of the innovation that we have in the market today.
Yeah,
we need that edge. We need that ability to be better than Russia, be better than China.
I don't think the fact that we have Boeing and Lockheed Martin operating under a capitalist profit motive means that necessarily we that is protecting us from fucking Russia. Actually, no, I don't think so at all.
Wait, you don't think our vast military protects us from Russia?
I didn't know that wasn't our military. Did I say our military? Nope, you didn't hear
you
that part.
specifically said Boeing and Lockheed Martin who produce.
Oh, are they the military? Oh, they're the military. Lockheed Martin,
right?
The executives of Lockheed Martin are on the front lines. And they're keeping us, and they're keeping freedom alive, keeping the hope alive. No, they're not the military.
Okay, so let me peel back the stupid here.
You want to correct yourself? Go ahead, try it again.
For me, buddy. So I'm going to peel back the stupid. No, what it is their ability to produce products that is out of reach for Russia that makes them competitive and good.
Can we set the person that works for the defense contract?
The military industrial complex, whatever you want to call it.
I'm glad you called the actual name, the right name. I like to call it that. Yeah.
Well, I have to. Oh, I'm sorry. I got to dance around words to deal with your dumbass point. The fact that these people are able to innovate and engineer and outproduce the Russian military is a deterrence factor. It's a deterrence factor for a lot of countries.
There is no reason to believe that we can do that ourselves.
We lose that competitive edge if you nationalize these industries.
There's no reason. There's no evidence of that.
No, there's
no evidence. Are you going to pay them the exact same thing?
Yeah, we could. You mean the actual one, not the executives, not the stockholders. If we eliminate all of that, right? Yes, we could pay the engineers. We could pay the engineers. I'm answering your question. We could pay the engineers. We could pay the actual innovators the exact same amount. Yeah, we actually could do that.
All you have to do, Prime, is look at NASA. What you're trying to wish into existence is not going to be a very efficient way of spending funds, dude.
NASA?
I agree.
Actually got to the moon first, right?
Those people? You'll never see me and Turk agree on anything, but I think that NASA is an excellent example of exactly why nationalizing certain industries makes a fucking ton of sense. Because NASA's job is not to build spaceships, right? NASA's job is to figure out what it takes to build a spaceship, go somewhere that a spaceship has never gone before.
You realize
act on what we found, and then let fucking Elon Musk go and figure out how to make the spaceship cheap as shit.
You realize back in the 60s, the United States was in charge of designing, producing, manufacturing, and all of that stuff.
And that was because it was a prototype. And look how bad they fucked it up. Look at the space shuttle. Like, that was a disaster program that we could have given to fucking private industry, and it would have probably been way cheaper for us.
Case in point. Thank
you.
Yes.
However, we still need the people doing the research and development on the frontier. We need the people that are on the cutting edge, and there's no incentive for the businesses to be there. Like, the technologies that we're still benefiting from the Apollo program.
I mean,
40 years later,
national production for that.
Facebook, all of this fucking shit that exists in Silicon Valley, right? Facebooks of the world, this thing that we're talking on right here, like, this came about because of the investments that were made in the Apollo program. Like Silicon Valley became Silicon Valley because they needed to manufacture the semiconductors to fucking guide the ICBMs that were the trickle down technology from NASA. Like, it's literally like, if you don't have this stuff, like, if you don't have the NASA, you don't have any fucking industry for the last 40 years. And the fact that we haven't been funding NASA is why we're not going to have industry moving forward for the next 40 years.
So yeah, except for the private industry is propelling it forward.
Not really.
No.
That's slightly.
I understand.
Over fucking rocket motors. They didn't invent anything besides how a way to produce a rocket as cheap as possible and get it up in space as often as possible. That's what they did. That's their innovation.
Can I ask you a question?
The entire infrastructure.
So it could actually make sense to make stuff in space, because we can't just produce stuff in space. We have to resend stuff up there all the time. That's the entire point of the privatized industry. It optimizes the entire production of stuff.
Okay, so the point of...
Wait, I need to get involved here.
So hold on. Wait, please. Thank you.
I've been waiting.
Good. Then you'll wait some more. Fuck. So Revolt Rise is absolutely on point. The focus of the idea that private industry would have taken us to space, like, it was ridiculous. Even the thought of a government, of a state with all its resources to put its money into going into space, right? But it's literally the only thing that could have done that, right? You need a state power to actually make that investment and to do it without any profit motive, because there was nothing there, right? As far as people knew, there was no profit-making incentive to go to space, right? Maybe you could have dreamed something up, but the incredible investment into that was just too much. And this is not the only industry, right? The government subsidizing other industries, like the energy sector, right, makes the energy sector what it is now, right? The fact that oil is so cheap, the fact that coal is so cheap, right? These are cheap sources. It's not because they are inherently simply cheap, right? It's that infrastructure was put in place by our government, by the United States, because we make those investments. There is no reason to think that we couldn't do the same in terms of the defense industry. That we, as a state, couldn't simply channel our innovators, by that I mean our engineers, right? Into producing exactly those weapons, right? Exactly the same thing, without a profit motive attached to it.
So my only contention with that is what we have right now, as corrupt as it is, works. We are the most advanced military in the world, bar none.
Does that prove
Lockheed, Martin, Raytheon, all these companies have helped to make us the most. Like, do you not believe that? Who is more advanced?
I'm sorry. Where's the counterfactual here? Where's the counterfactual in
Germany?
The
so
other
when you
where we had a nationalized,
the
where the United
program,
States
let
had
me
a
finish
Germany
my
and
point.
Where's the counterfactual for a world where we had a nationalized industry that we invest in this ourselves? We decided that industry is just too dangerous. That we had a world where I'll just leave it like that. Go ahead.
Okay.
So, I need to
just let me finish. Let me finish, and then
I've let everyone else finish.
Let me finish.
For the love of God, I'll let you finish too.
If we change our system, there is a risk that it may not work as well. There is no guarantee that nationalizing the industry will create the same results. There just is not.
There's a risk when you do something different. Different results might happen. Oh wow, amazing, Wick. Good work.
All right, it's still in time. Woo!
Amazing insights.
Still in time. Hooray! I'm throwing myself in the ring. Whether you want me to or not, I'm here. I'm ready to party. Okay, perfect. So I'm stepping up here, and I think of myself as a little Mr. John Maynard Keynes. All right, so I don't know if anyone knows where I'm going with this already. But nerd. Yep. Oh yeah, nerd time. All right. But it seems like to me, with government or the government's ability to incentivize national production of things, like we had the space agency, you know, or NASA, right? Things like that that don't have the profit incentive. However, during it seems like war times is when we ultimately have a profit incentive and we have a desire to produce on a mass scale more weapons. However, that doesn't really mean that innovation in and of itself comes from that point of time. So it seems like a stupid take to me that we should just leave this all up to markets or private industry or whatever, when we could actually have a nationalized version of this and then invest into private sectors during wartime when mass production is needed. Like, investment itself can come from the government in order to innovate.
And another thing that's dumb about Luke's point is that, like, to separate the U.S. from all the other things that's made it successful. You know, like oceans, covering both sides of our borders, right? Like that, like being separate from Europe, the great European powers, right? That they can just invade us left and right. That gives space to build up any industry, right?
Japan
like that
tried
stuff. It. Like, I mean, I don't know, right? Like
Japan did a pretty good job.
To say that Lockheed Martin and Boeing are the reasons why the U.S. is what it is, right? Like it's amazing.
Some of the reasons.
It's so.
Some of the reasons we are most technologically
such a myopic view of history. Like it's sad. Like it's a
why?
Yeah, it's
why?
Sad. How?
Why
How?
would us? Okay. Why would us simply being separated by oceans mean that we are the most advanced military technology? Yes, it would mean that we would be invaded less, that we'd be attacked less. That's true. But
7 or 8 times more than our nearest competitor. That's why we're the most advanced. And for the dollar we spend, we don't get much.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly that. We invest. We are the ones willing to invest a crazy amount. That's
yes. It has nothing to do with us being separated by ocean.
The exact same thing. You can if you wanted to, you shouldn't. But if you wanted to, you can invest the exact same dollar amount into a nationalized industry.
Revolt, I'm like silly fucking curious. You said that you did work for a defense industry, correct? And you seem to be on, at least in some camp of like government innovation seems to be better than the industry on the forefront. Could you like explain that for me?
I think government investment in innovation is important because we can democratically control the things that we like. You know what I mean? Like, or at least theoretically have some democratic input into what it is that we're investing in, and that way we can steer technology a little bit better. That's point one. Point two is I think that there's no economic like. It doesn't make sense for a company that's trying to make quarterly numbers to be investing in technology that they might be able to use in 40 years. But the stuff that we might be able to use in 40 years turns out to be stupid little things like TCP/IP protocol and ring bus like processing configurations, right?
Like GPS as well, right? That was
GPS. Yeah, like I mean, and one example of something that like you can't prove the negative, they say, but like there's actually an example of this that you can. We were working on to go to Mars. Was part of NASA's program. Like after we had been to the moon a few times, we decided we were going to go to Mars, and then the public lost interest in it, and then they cut funding for it in Vietnam War and all that shit happened. But like, but basically, like one of the technologies that was like forefront to be developed during that was miniaturization of LiDAR technology, right? And that's like the exact thing that Elon Musk doesn't have access to right now to make self-driving cars. Like, so we can see that there's a direct like impact of technology that we had been working on. We canceled the program, and now we need it, and we stopped doing it because nobody knew what we were going to need it for, other than going to Mars.
So it's like this applies to like environmental protections and spending. Like
big time. Like the superconducting super collider in Texas is another fucking great example. Like this was gonna be, it was gonna be.
I think the one in Clinton in the early '90s, right?
Early '90s. Herbert Walker Bush canceled it, and like the wall came down, and we no longer needed to put a whole bunch of energy on Moscow in 15 minutes, right? So all the physics industry went away, and everybody who was in a physics program dropped out and went into economics, and that's why we have the fucking mess that we have today with that whole thing too. But like the point is that like the technology, like we would have found big Higgs boson like in 1995 or 96, they think, which is like I believe like a full decade and a half sooner than we actually found it. So it's like that kind of technology or like that capability was an investment that we decided we didn't want to make because like we lost the motivation to like continue the Cold War. And so like it's literally an example of military investment, if it had been sustained, would have probably been like made huge beneficial like increases in where we're at, like in terms of like physics and our understanding of the universe today.
But government investment in subsidies is much different than nationalizing an industry.
No. See, and I disagree with Prime on this issue. I think that like what we should be doing is doing the research and the development on a national level, and then disseminating the information for free to everybody, like NASA does, and letting private industry figure out how best to utilize it.
I was just trying to clear that point up because it felt like you were with Prime on that.
Well, I mean, like I said, with the private industry, typically when it comes to war times, private industry has an ability to actually produce products on a mass scale, whereas we can disseminate innovations made on a governmental level.
What, the government can't produce things on a mass scale?
The government
at a factory.
Wait, but private industry does a better job of lowering costs for mass-produced things.
The problem
by
with
having them compete on the market.
Where you get all these
why
kinds of
is hold on, when has cost ever been a problem when it comes to the military? Right? Like let's say that's actually the case.
No,
right? I don't think a government could reduce costs if they
money
wanted
that
to.
we didn't
I don't see there's
Not to
anything.
be
I
that
don't think
guy.
there's anything that is
F-22
unique.
is the
That is
counter to
unique.
that.
That is unique to the private industry that says it can reduce costs necessarily. But still, even if that was the case, there's no reason why we couldn't mass produce, right? Like the fact that like our society has never once been concerned about the cost of the war making machine, right? So I don't know why we'd be concerned about that now.
I'm not concerned about cost. I'm concerned about the fact that like China gets like 3 airplanes for every dollar that you know what I mean? Like they get $3 for every dollar they spend in their military, essentially, like their efficiency when it comes to acquiring stuff. So it's like part of that is because they steal our technology, obviously, but a lot of it is in the production and like and the manufacturing costs. And the reason they're able to keep it so efficient is because like they've nationalized their industry essentially, and the amount of profit that the businesses make is essentially
Wait, but
minimal.
Revolt, a lot of that production is still in the special economic zones.
Yeah, is it though? I think like at least like for their I know specifically their engine manufacturing technology is not like that's in the heartland of the country there.
I was fairly certain though that mass production for things like body parts, other than engines and things like that, like on a mass scale, was
That could be, and don't forget too that like the number one thing that the military produces, I think by like a large margin, is uniforms, and then after that bullets. Maybe it's bullets and then uniforms, but it's the like things that you don't think about, like not airplanes that are costing a lot. It's tiny little things, right?
Yeah.
And ordering them by the billions.
Mhm.
I guess so, but the innovation that we're most concerned about here, I feel like, is aviation technology, weapons of mass destruction, shit like that.
Well,
No, we
yeah,
did that. We created the nuke, right? The government-
Intel is something that the United States is far and above, I think, and I think Intel and our recon and our ability to gather and process information is bar none, and that has kept us ahead of the game.
China and Israel
Yeah,
would
I
disagree with you on that one, but
there's a lot of
LSP.
Yes.
I've been waiting for you. This is the hidden threat in the room. LSP.
I don't see why you need exclusively government investment in it. It seems like it would make sense to me that you want to encourage.
I'll tell you why. But
it doesn't happen any other way. I'm not saying I personally don't think you should limit it, right? Like I don't think we should stop the businesses from investing in it. They just don't.
So the reason why I would consider doing that is because the industry itself has a profit motive, and it uses and that is a reason why it interferes with our politics. It ends up distorting our politics. Like the great amount of money that goes into these industries ends up destroying our national priorities. So
could you elaborate on what you mean? Like the electorate has their priorities skewed?
No, I mean the politicians, right? The politicians who end up either working for the defense contractors and then lobbying Congress afterwards, or directly getting donations from them. That like we created an industry, we created a constituency, a powerful constituency that ends up influencing our politics.
But it's not necessarily the politicians that are making some of these product decisions, right, of the investment that's going on. It's a lot of the people that have been ingrained in the organizations for years and years and years that are dictating how funds are being allocated on a micro level. The F-22, for example, it was meant for a sole purpose, and then due to the bureaucracy in the different military branches, it got scope creeped out of oblivion, and the price of the program, like, I think tripled, right? So it's like...
Because I don't think that I understand what you're saying, and you're very right that happens. But the reason why is because
It happens all the time.
Yeah, but we just don't overtly embrace the fact that these are jobs programs and then go after them. You know what I mean? Like if you want to create jobs, instead of making the F-35 a nightmare,
There's
let's
nothing
start
wrong with them being
job
jobs programs.
Well, it becomes problematic on a lot of different levels as far as like placing, time of maintenance, and then like how are we, like it seems to be like a logistical nightmare as well as like an executive decision to like we're going to place this plant here in this state, 5 states over, and we're going to place this plant, and then we're going to go 2 states back and we're going to put it here. Like that was a factor in the development of the F-22. I think it went from 10 billion or 10.5 to like 44 billion if my memory serves
It went
me
to
correctly.
multiple different military branches, and they wanted different tweaks and stuff.
Yep.
And of course, the company we're talking about, Lockheed Martin, they initially had a design that satisfied the goals, and then the government and the bureaucracies involved changed the development parameters for the program, and they kept ballooning the cost. That's because the government changed the budget and wanted to spend more money.
I'm
and they
going to be
wasted money.
Voice. That's not necessarily a bad thing, Turk. It seems like obvious.
It got to the point where Trump nearly canned it, man.
It seems like obvious that the Navy would have certain needs that the Marine Corps just doesn't.
Right.
And it wasn't meant to be for all service industries. It was a general plane.
This is not exclusive to the F-22. This is a problem. Like there are variants to all fighter aircraft that exist within our branches of military, or not even fighter aircraft, even rescue aircraft or reconnaissance aircraft. Sure. But they all have their own like unique variations that are suited for some specific purpose. That seems to make sense to me, and that's smart. You would want a military that is diverse, a military that can approach scenarios with like a vast array of tools suited for each special need. Right? Otherwise, Russia right now without snow tires.
Yeah, and then the problem becomes like one company just can't seem to be able to handle this, and there's no other industry or company that they either want to share the plans to. I think at a time like Lockheed and Boeing were going to start working together on this specific one because it became so wide and vast. And then
sued the government about 10,000 times. They were pissed they lost the contract because they were competing for it originally.
Yeah, so like again, I'm not necessarily for nationalizing all the industry, but there are some logistical problems that the market doesn't seem to fairly address at times.
Yeah, there are obviously problems to the way we do it now. I don't think anyone would disagree that we do it in a super efficient, like we don't do it in a super efficient manner. The problem becomes is that a lot of these problems we're putting on this privatized thing isn't because of privatization. It's because of the way that the politicians work with these companies. And I think we should tackle it from the politicians' angle because these are the people we can elect, that we could provide legislation to tackle it. But the privatized industries are actually not the problem here.
Wick, you got to look at the fact that if you're dealing with these private companies, right, on any level, which I don't think I think it's unavoidable. I'd like it to be avoidable, but it's not. I think it's unavoidable.
Yeah.
You're going to be dealing with private companies. They have a fiduciary responsibility to make maximize profits, and that means that they're going to pay their people the least possible, do the things the least safe possible. You know what I mean? Like whatever it is that just barely meet the minimum requirements is what they're going to do because that's what they have to do.
Well, yeah, that's how you make maximal profits to compete on a marketplace, right? So it completely logically follows like that.
So, Wick.
I mean, with profit incentives too, Wick, you have to understand that having a profit incentive in a market like this doesn't actually bolster the types of innovations that aren't profitable for the average person, right? Like the innovations I was talking about earlier in terms of environmental factors, things like that as well.
I understand that.
Private industry just doesn't tend to handle these things. So it's not just... It is a problem of a lot of privatization and we do need government to step in on a lot of these things and fund programs that will actually help.
The government subsidize government investment is a great thing. I'm not arguing that government should be investing in this.
It seems like you pin this problem on politicians when there's a lot of problems with private industry. In a lot of ways, the private industry.
Well, but why are these things separate? I don't understand.
Yeah,
this is what
it doesn't.
Dustin, you give it a try first.
It's a group issue.
Well, like this is a group issue, but one of the things we do seem to have our best control over as far as like the United States as of right now is we don't have a lot of fucking control over capitalist companies, right? Like look at kind of like our gas shortages or like the rising inflation costs in gas and all of that stuff. We don't have that, but we can address what their rules and regulations are as far as like on them. This is like a first step. And Did you say it is way easier?
Yeah, way easier than just nationalize Boeing and Lockheed
Right.
Martin.
Yeah, of course. And
not
that is like what we're talking about when we're talking about why we believe that they shouldn't be able to invest during their time and then maybe a couple years afterwards, right? Or an actual effective blind trust. That's what we're talking about if we're going to talk about addressing some of these problems, because again, they have an incentive to make sure that these plants come to their state, but we don't want to have those set up perverse incentives that we agreed are just within the realm of possibilities, not necessarily fully corrupt, but within the realm of, yeah, this could possibly happen.
Yeah, so you're saying, well, nationalize is so much easier than limiting the direct wealth of politicians.
Yeah,
I think both of those are actually very tough. I think those are.
I want to
very
be very
useful.
clear.
You have to wait. You can be really clear after I'm finished fucking talking. Maybe. Holy shit.
Well, he wouldn't need to be
I
clear
literally
if you
just started. I
Prime.
literally just started. Like, holy fuck. Anyway. So yeah, like I think it's gonna be a struggle, an uphill struggle to nationalize one of the most politically tied industries, right? The industry that is most in bed with politicians, or right to tell politicians, hey, take a vote to directly limit your possibilities for wealth growth, right? Like it's being a politician has made you guys millionaires with how you performed in the stock market, with the inside knowledge that you've had, right? The ability to invest in companies that you know are about to have a stock increase, right? And just being able to use your connections, right, for more investment opportunities, right? To limit that, to tell them, hey, like, make yourself poorer. Yeah, I think that's going to be a tough climb either way, right?
I don't think so. I mean, you've got a lot of Democratic support for the bill that I had listed earlier. I'm sorry, Wick.
No, it's okay. But that's why I would be for increasing their salary and things like that to compensate. If we pay them, if the government, the U.S. government, is the one cashing their checks instead of Lockheed Martin, as Revolt said earlier, then they are beholden to the U.S. people, not Lockheed Martin. So I get what you're saying, that you don't want to make them more poor. I do not want to do that. I do not want to limit their salary. I do not want to take away their ability to generate wealth. I want to change how they generate wealth. I want to change it from these backroom deals that they do with these fucking companies, and I want to make it so that they are invested in the American people.
It's not.
Yeah, well, have I got the solution for you guys? Holy shit.
I hope you're going to say what I think you're going to say, but if you don't,
is it going to have something to do with that thing on my wall over there?
it's going to have to do with worker democracy, and we can demand.
Yes, it is. It's
workers
going to
of
have to
Boeing
do with
take over the-
consumer cooperatives. Oh boy, yep, that's where I'm going with this one. So I think in an ideal society, the best approach for this type of thing would probably to have these private entities, right? The ones that work on these technologies that help innovate for society. Like we got the GPS examples, the internet examples as well. I think that the ideal structure for these types of things to control the way that their investments are made would be have a membership optional, like an opt-in membership program. Or, I don't know if you guys know how credit unions work. Oh boy, I always go on this tirade all the time.
Please don't. Okay.
I won't go on a long tirade.
No, don't do anything. We
successful-
don't really need to hear about credit unions
What's
right now.
the most successful credit union?
It doesn't matter.
Desjardins,
Okay, I really want to.
Well, I'm not going on this tirade, though. I'm finishing my point. Okay. Either way, so if we institute some type of membership policy which allows people to have a readily available, some type of dividend for shares or things like that, where people have more direct influence in the private entities themselves to determine what technologies they produce, this is going to create better outcomes for the average person. Like the same thing applies with my bank example from earlier. That's why I'm using it as a one-to-one. So that way the types of investments are made on, say, directly voted upon boards or meetings of that sort where, typically the consumers, the people who work with these companies themselves actually have a direct say in how these companies or what these companies are producing, as opposed to these bigger investments.
It's not what they're producing is the problem. They're producing...
It is what they're producing. A lot of what they're producing is the problem, though. That's the thing. If we want to work on innovating technologies that actually benefit the average person, instead of just seeing who can mass produce the most tanks,
Well,
But
like,
why would war contractors need to be? I don't understand why war contractors would create investments that would benefit the most people without like
That's
their
not their job.
purpose is that's not their job.
Yeah,
That-
but their job though is they compete over contracts, and that's the point of the point. Like markets are good. Like I'm the kind of socialist who believes that markets are good at some things, and I think that one of them is this. And like I think that like having competition is good, and I think that we don't have enough competition. That's part of the problem. And like in the 90s, Clinton and before him Bush like really like pushed all these defense contractors to merge together. That's why you have Lockheed Martin and not Lockheed and Martin Marietta. Like that's like one of the reasons why like it's so inefficient. There's like so much inefficiency where there is inefficiency in our current system. I think we should be encouraging more businesses to get into this business and make more competition for these things, right? So that we have like better like economic effects, like and our dollar goes further.
I mean, more control on the floor for what's being produced. That way, we can actually have a better understanding.
It's not the not the production. That's at least not the problem here, right? You can argue that there are certain planes that we shouldn't be making, right? That were completely ridiculous. I think that's fair. Okay, sure, but that's not the problem that we're talking about. The problem we're talking about is the how these industries have affected our national priorities, how they've affected our appetite for war, right? By that I mean like not our appetite, I mean the people. I mean our politicians, and affecting where they put investments. Like that's the issue, not necessarily that they may be producing some inefficient products. So that's that part I'm not so concerned about. We should change that, sure. We should be as more efficient as possible, but like I'm concerned about the effect they have on politics.
Yeah, sure. I mean,
Yeah, I think we all are though, right? Like I do not understand this pushback against my proposals here, Prime, that I want to limit the corruption and I want to limit the conflict of interest that politicians have when making these decisions of when to go to war and things like that by limiting the interaction between the corporation and the politician. I don't know why that's
push
a bad
back
thing.
against that. I think Wick, you
It
think I'm
felt like
talking.
you did.
Wick, I think you think I'm talking to you a lot of the times when I'm not. Like when
Yeah,
I'm not.
that might be true. That might be true. Everything revolves around me, so that's just how my life works. But
And
no,
I'm
that
the
might
one
be
in the
true.
center. I don't know. It's just-
Revolt, you seem skeptic. What's up?
Number one, like to bring it back to what we were actually talking about, like to tie into what I was saying about having like more diverse contractors that were like competing for bids on these contracts, right? Is the fact that we will stop the fact that we've got 6 companies or 8 companies primarily that control such a massive amount of wealth that they're able to do stuff like counter the state, right? Like and compete with the state in terms of like all of the functions that they provide, right? To like employment, like compensation being like probably the chief among them, right? And like so by getting rid of that like centralization of the power, I think is probably a much better system, and you'll see less like necessary corruption, I think.
Would you break up these industries rather than add more necessarily?
I'm saying exactly that. Break these companies up and/or like incentivize competition, like of startups of other companies that are coming in to compete with a more ethical business model, like especially like worker democracy type stuff.
Well, we can look at this as like Silicon Valley too, right? Like Apple seems to just like find these really small companies that are in Silicon Valley that develop like one super thing that they think they can use, buy the company or buy them out with like ridiculous offers, and then they just seem to like hold onto that technology and keep it in a chest. Maybe they have an idea of what it could be used for later, but it doesn't seem like they've got a practical application for it for the time being, and that seems to be a big huge issue as of like innovation hoarding as of right now.
Yeah, I agree with that too. And it's like we run into this problem on a lot of levels. But as far as like political corruption and influence is concerned, I think the major issue obviously is accumulation of capital, and right now it's in a very few hands.
Yeah, that's a part of it for sure. I think I'd have to disagree with you, Prime, as far as like the idea of like politicians seemingly being bought for the ideas of like going to war. I think I only disagree on this idea because strength seems to be like a huge voting turnout. It really seems like we prefer the strong politician over the weak one, and that seems to be the incentive that the public gives versus like Boeing buying this politician off. But that I don't know how much of a critique that actually is.
I want to hear more from LSP. I rarely get to talk to this guy. Uh,
I have no opinions. I showed up late. Me on this, and you know why you're putting me on the.
you cutting out. You're cutting out again. Again, start the deep filter. Okay.
Okay, you are doing this to put me on the spot,
Microphone.
Prime, and we both know it. You are doing this to catch me flat-footed.
I'm not trying to. I swear, I'm not. I'm actually trying to have an engagement with you because you have the. I think you think about this particular issue in terms of our national policy of defense and all that stuff more than the average person does. And you have a nuanced take, and I just want to talk to you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, my take is generally whatever improves outcomes for people is generally a good thing. Which is,
people?
yeah, I know.
Which people?
For the average person, I think the average person benefits from having a strong military. I think the average person benefits from having an elitist politician, not an everyman. I think the average person benefits from having good regulatory laws that restrict corruption. All of that stuff is stuff I'm behind.
So the average person would be the average American, and not
The
like the average
American.
brown country where we.
Yeah, fuck them
Indeed.
kids.
Okay. Right. So.
Jeez.
Well, I mean, obviously, I wouldn't support like warfare for the sake of killing brown people. Normally, I support killing brown people if they're terrorists or something first. Like, usually there's some precondition that has to be met.
But I
How
mean,
noble of you.
we can make more terrorists, right? We can create more conflict and make more people despise the U.S. and then take up arms against us, which would, hey, mean more conflict, right? And more money.
I think conflicts, I mean, the whole history of humankind has been conflict. I don't think whether we sit on our hands and do nothing or everybody's business, conflict's always going to exist. I don't think there's anything wrong with the American people being ready for that.
No, that's fine. No, I agree with you. You'll find, I'll never argue against that, sure. I'm saying, though, we have an industry that is incentivized to help create conflict, help exacerbate conflicts, help encourage conflicts.
Is there any evidence that the defense industry has created or encouraged conflict?
I think that, I mean, we had...
There's
I mean, like,
definitely
wishy-washy thing, like, they donate to a politician who supports a conflict. I mean, something concrete and real.
Not since like the 70s or 60s.
Hold on, we had Dick Cheney, who came from a defense contract, right? Correct?
He went back to it.
Did Halliburton?
He went back to it too.
Yeah, exactly. Went right back to it. And who encouraged, was the driving force of us getting into Iraq and Afghanistan, right?
We didn't get to Iraq and Afghanistan. We didn't get into Iraq or Afghanistan because of Halliburton. I think that's a horribly reductive.
I said Dick Cheney.
Okay. I mean, I feel like these one-offs are just like so ahistorical and devoid of context. Like,
but you asked me, like, for an example.
I don't think this is a good example. I think this is an example that works against you because the broader conflict of that region, both Afghanistan and Iraq, had been a thorn in our side for years before Dick Cheney ever got into office. Like, Saddam Hussein had been a regional dictator who destabilized the Middle East well before Dick Cheney ever got there.
Sure.
Afghanistan had been a haven for Islamic extremism well before the U.S. ever even got involved with Al-Qaeda. I'm sorry, not involved with Al-Qaeda. Yeah, invaded in 2001.
Dick Cheney was there a long time before he became vice president, though. Don't forget.
Yeah, right. Like he had some pretty political big influences.
Yeah, he's been there for a
while. At the time too.
But you are correct. You are perfectly correct when you say that like there is a larger history, a larger context to the Middle East, that it doesn't just its current issues don't simply center around what happens in Washington. I think that's absolutely correct. But the way that we have interacted with the Middle East, right? Well, that's on us, right? The way we have chosen. So Saddam Hussein can be the terror that he was, and he was a terror. He was a terrible human being, right? Glad he's dead. Fuck him, right? But that doesn't mean that we had to handle that in the way we did, right? And
yeah, we could have handled it better.
Okay. Right? So would that have required an invasion that happened to benefit many contractors? Just to happen.
This is Prime. This is a conversation you and I need to have, because this is going to totally derail the thing.
The problem.
I know it's going to trigger the fuck out of revolt. I don't necessarily support the war in Iraq. but I think there is a very legitimate basis for that war, irrespective of contractors, defense contractors, irrespective of oil or whatever anybody else wants to point to, which is it is Prime and Saddam Hussein's actions as dictator. The fact that he did commit a genocide, the fact that we did have to maintain a no-fly zone over Iraqi Kurdistan, right? All of that stuff. What are you confused by, Prime?
A dictator committed a genocide. Hey, what's happening in Africa right now? There are two countries that are having a bit of a conflict. We seem to be having a bit of an ethnic cleansing campaign.
And Libya. Well, I don't know about ethnic cleansing. In Ethiopia, sure, but in Libya, I don't think there's ethnic cleansing.
I didn't say Libya. I meant Ethiopia.
What other one do you think of? Nigeria? Are you talking about Boko Haram?
No, I said Ethiopia. Ethiopia.
Yeah, Ethiopia.
Yeah.
I don't get what you're getting at. Like, I would favor intervening there. I'm not sure what you're getting at.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know. My point is that the U.S. doesn't intervene in all those things, right? Like, that's not the reason why. The fact that a dictator happens to be doing terrible things in the world is not a reason why the U.S. interferes.
Sure.
Saddam Hussein allegedly did his problem. It was an American coup. We convinced the Kurds and we supported the Kurds to have a coup, and then we didn't show up and back them like we told them they were going to, and that's why they got put down. And like, it was the repression of our insurrection that we inspired. That was the issue.
Okay, so to address the why we don't thing, politics plays a large part in any conflict. It's part of the reason why. And you've probably seen it. American people are like go hung for a no-fly zone in Ukraine, but they are very apathetic or even staunchly opposed to responding to the chemical attack in Syria in 2013, if you remember that, right? This has to do with war weariness. This doesn't have to do with defense contractors. You would think that if defense contractors were out to make a dollar, and there's a conflict going on in Ethiopia and Libya and Nigeria, there'd be prime bucks there that would justify the U.S. intervening. We don't intervene. It's not because we're beholden to defense contractors. If we were, we would be intervening. It's because the American people aren't hungry for like any sort of regional conflict in Africa.
And
we're war weary.
We don't have to go to war for them to sell the goods. We sell a lot of the interest in the weapons that they're using.
Oh yeah, we'll sell them weapons, sure. We just won't do anything about it. Like Iraq, like we just won't do anything about.
Yeah. Well, not anymore, but
no, I meant we obviously intervene in Iraq. I'm saying in the other country that Prime just listed that we don't intervene in. And truthfully, the hot take here is this probably has a lot to do with race as well. Just a hint of like unconscious racism or regional racism.
Yeah, it seems less personal.
I just want to point out that I guess a specific amount of shit directly from LSP from coming into this, like originally, and saying that the war in Iraq, was it because of the contractors? A little. Was it because of the oil? A little.
Yeah, I mean, there's multiple fucking reasons why we would have.
I laughed for 5 minutes.
No evidence. There's just never been. I know it triggers the fuck out of me. There's just never been evidence to say the war in Iraq was fought for oil. None has ever been provided. China gets the vast majority of the oil in Iraq. And we only get something like 10% of our overall petroleum exports from Iraq. There's plenty of other oil-rich nations that we could have toppled. Like, I don't know. Like, it seems to match up with me that Saddam Hussein was a dictator who tortured people and destabilized the region and tried to develop like nuclear weapons and did develop chemical weapons. It seems like there's all sorts of reasons why we'd be mad at him beyond Iraqi oil.
In 1959, when the United States started subverting the government of Iraq, what was it for?
I don't know. My history of Iraq goes back to like the 70s.
Okay, so
that was also in hand in hand
America's initial involvement in Iraq, right? Destabilized the country and caused the government to become weak enough that Saddam Hussein was able to rise to power in the first place. Like, this is like, but it was
well, good on us for removing the dictator we put in power then. I don't know what the point is.
No. I'm not saying that. I agree with you 100%. Like on your take, except for some reason, like I don't know why you push back on my saying that there's like a bunch of complicated interest here. And it's not necessarily that the oil was for us. It's not control over the oil. It's
I push back on the oil one because there's no evidence for it.
There's evidence that Russia was making investments in Iraq, and that was at least part of the discussion is whether or not we wanted them to have access to their oil.
Part of the discussion from who? At what level?
We can talk about that all day, but like Dick Cheney is like chief among them has been had given speeches.
Did Dick Cheney say that because Russia's got oil investment interests in Iraq that we need to invade Iraq?
Well, he said there's some attention ought to be paid to the issue. I think was his exact wordage. But this was like leading up to his nomination to vice president. He was giving public.
This is my problem with this narrative. You have to stretch things like so far to make them fit.
I don't see how that's a stretch.
I'm not stretching things. I'm saying that it was at least.
We have to consider Iraq's oil infrastructure to we're invading for oil is absolutely a stretch.
I've never ever said that we invaded for oil, and I would never say that.
You said it was a component of it. That was part of the reason we
one of
invaded.
1,000
No,
components.
it's not. You can care.
Yes,
we also care about
no
infrastructure. Did we invade for water?
0% of the reason. Not even
0%.
1%.
Unless you provide some evidence, it's 0%.
Okay. I just
Provide
think
some evidence.
that seems to me more of a stretch to think that it played
what do you
no
have
role
against that
whatsoever.
evidence?
Real hot truth. We invaded Iraq for their sand. They got lots of sand.
Yeah, sure. Okay,
It's the wrong kind of sand, though. Saudi Arabia has the right sand. We should have invaded them.
Yeah, like what do you want to
good.
consider as evidence, though, LSP? Like that would be the ultimate question, right?
Some sort of statement from some sort of decision maker about why we're invading that implies or points to oil. Not just we need to consider their oil infrastructure.
Yeah, that's a popular fucking political statement to make at any point in fucking time ever.
They could have made it in private. I don't give a fuck. Find it. Right, but you haven't met your burden of proof for this narrative, is what I'm saying.
So, what was the speech?
But you're making an assertion, okay? LSP, you're asserting that it was not in any way, shape, or form 0% part of this decision-making process.
Sure,
and
prove it to me.
I understand you can't prove a negative. I'm not asking you.
Well, there you go. Then why are we talking?
I just think that you asking for this burden of proof when it's a pretty implicit kind of thing you can extrapolate. I don't think
this feels like an imbecile's reasoning. This is lazy reasoning. If you don't have evidence for something, you shouldn't be assuming something. It's that simple.
Yeah, but okay.
Look at the evidence you do have.
Coming from fucking Halliburton isn't enough for you to at least know he knows where some of the largest oil reserves in the world is.
That's evidence of cronyism. You want to indict Halliburton for cronyism? Fine.
I
don't have a problem with
okay, you're not paying attention. You said the requirement. Yeah, the requirement was like show you direct evidence. I'm not gonna. I don't have like a direct.
Show me indirect evidence too. But
yeah, sure.
I think Halliburton got no good contracts. It's pretty weak indirect evidence.
Okay. I didn't even bring those up, but I do feel like that is a source of which we could say that's a nice little thing that we could throw in here in our little bucket, right? The fact that Dick Cheney comes from a giant oil company, which then kind of has an understanding of where some of the largest oil reserves in the world are, right? Like that can be an accumulative factor of knowledge that comes into play when we talk about why a reason, not the fucking reason, a reason why we ended up interacting.
I'm curious.
Kind of like,
what percentage of the reason would you say oil is
5%?
5%?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I mean, if you want me to, I don't think it. I wouldn't even put it up fucking beyond 15%.
How about just don't put a percentage if you don't have evidence? Like, why is that such a hard standard?
Well, you asked for a percentage.
Yeah, because you do have a little bit of evidence. You do have an understanding of like it was an oil-rich nation. Like that has to come into play.
Evidence.
What is your?
What are you talking about as far as like geopolitics?
It may not be good evidence.
Do you think Crimea was taken from like Russia took Crimea because they just don't fucking like the fact that Ukraine has a negative opinion government on them now? Like you don't?
Yeah, that is part of it. Yes.
Oh, okay. Right. So then how about the giant oil fields and reserves that were found in 2012?
May well also be part of it. Looking a lot like it's probably part of it.
Thank you. So that's kind of the same conversation that we're having here.
No,
I limit the idea to 5%.
It's not. It's absolutely not.
Calculation.
We are absolutely not having the same conversation. Ukraine is a functioning democracy that for all intents and purposes was running as a stable country, right, with actual democratic reforms. Iraq was a dictatorship with a crazy person who committed a genocide and kept invading neighbors. Like, these are not the same conversations.
I didn't say that they were. That's
what I'm responding to. You said like we're having.
No, but you're not listening to the point that I'm making. Would you agree that 5%
I responded to your point directly?
Well, would you agree? And you pivoted off the direct point that I'm trying.
Tell me what I pivoted.
Okay, when I said it's probably about 5% accounting for the Iraq invasion, as far as
I addressed that.
Right? How did you address that?
I said if you don't have any evidence, you probably shouldn't put a percentage on it. That's a direct address to what you said, not a pivot.
Quote from the article that I linked in the VC chat, right? Revelations that the White House in 2001, 2 years before the invasion of Iraq and months before 9/11, had invited oil executives to contribute planning toward the division of Iraq's oil wealth.
But that's not evidence. It destroys my point. It's not evidence. You can't count it.
It's not evidence. What,
exactly. Like nothing.
See, this is
like,
what we asked
you.
I'm like dealing with like the stupidest fucking people on Twitter.
But it is fucking evidence.
I know. Hang on. I know.
Fucking ignore it.
Calm down, little girl. Calm down. Okay, so no, that's not evidence. Of course, you're gonna have to deal with Iraq's oil infrastructure after you take over.
You're just incapable of seeing this as evidence, and that's fine.
So what percentage? So
oh my
what
God,
percentage of dealing with Iraq's oil infrastructure do you think was part of the planning for the war?
Huh? Was that to me?
More than 5%?
Yeah. What percentage? You just said you obviously you're gonna have to deal with the planning of it. What percentage of the planning do you think was dedicated to the dealing with the?
To deal with their oil infrastructure is not the same as invading for oil. Obviously, Iraq's going to need an oil infrastructure to rebuild their wealth after they.
Prove that. You can't prove that. Okay, if they're talking about the oil infrastructure, they're talking about dividing up between American companies of the assets of another country.
Because Iraq. I'm sorry.
You're going to make the claim that.
Okay, let me make a counterclaim here.
CEOs in the board of directors of those corporations are not in any way influenced by that.
Oil.
Well, hold on.
That's a fucking leap.
Might as well let him do his own thing. All right, what do we got?
Hang on.
Well, I'm playing the dinosaur game from the Chrome browser. If you guys want to watch that, we could totally stream that. That sounds like fun.
There you go. That's what's up.
You know, dinosaurs made oil.
For people that are curious, as far as like, you should probably check out the Discord VC.
For the record, I like Saddam Hussein was a bad guy, and I'm not. Me and LSP have argued.
Baghdad offered to give the United States first priority rights as it related to Iraqi oil rights as part of a deal to avert the impending invasion. Overtures intrigued the Bush administration, but were ultimately rebuffed. If we wanted their oil, why do we need to invade when he makes an offer like that?
Because that wasn't the only reason we invaded. It was a small portion of the reason, not the entirety.
It was a 5%, guys. Look at the 5% here. I've got 5% of the reason why we invaded Iraq.
Yeah, sure. I'm fine with that being at 5%. I have a problem with the fact that it was a factor, but when you look and decide to make plans for invading a fucking nation, and you decide to divvy those natural resources up to certain fucking
another 5%.
Your article is from 2003.
It's perceived masculinity.
Well, the Bush administration was still in power in 2003. My article is from I think 2012, right?
Oh, ballsy.
So?
Oh, because more information came out after the fact that disproved the initial claims, including they lied under oath about it. It was part of the article that I linked you.
Okay, I'm sorry. Are you saying my article's wrong?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Which part is wrong?
The part that's disproven by the article that I linked above you.
I haven't read the article. Why don't you just tell me what part's wrong?
Sure. The claims that the Bush administration had made about their involvement in discussions with the oil industry were proven to be lies. And
okay, what did the Bush administration claim, and what was the lie?
They said that there was no involvement of the oil industry in decision making for the planning of like the invasion of Iraq. I think what the original statement was, that was like the under oath statement that they're contesting was a lie.
None of that contradicts what my article says. Okay, my article says Saddam offered U.S. first priority oil rights to Iraq to stave off an invasion. It didn't say anything about getting U.S. contractors, U.S. oil companies in there or coordinating with them or anything like that. It's talking about what Saddam Hussein offered the United States to avoid an invasion, which was first priority.
That doesn't mean that they have to even consider the fucking offer, because they don't want to just take that small percentage of what Saddam is offering.
What do you think would be an easier way of getting Iraqi oil? Trading for it or blowing the country up and invading?
Well, if you have benefits such as like getting rid of a sadistic shithole of a dictator, maybe not trading for it, invading the fucking country and then installing a war.
Look at Mohammed bin Salman of Saudi Arabia. Do you think?
Wait, hold on. Well, hold on. No. Let's not shift.
There's a big reason why that it goes all the way back to the Carter administration, right?
Your rationale doesn't make sense.
The Saudi government bailed the United States fucking treasury out of trillions of dollars.
Well, let's not LSP. Let's not shift. Let's not pivot. All right, let's knock it off. Let's go back there and let's pay attention and address what we were talking about. Yes, because I want you to actually address and engage with the information that is being provided, as opposed to going off somewhere else. Do we agree that Saddam was a bad fucking person and probably should have been removed, not just for fucking oil?
What? No, I disagree with that.
So you think he shouldn't have been removed?
Great person. How dare you, sir?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, like he had a lot of kids, so he had to be a
Don't
pretty
pivot.
good.
Don't pivot. Don't pivot.
Oh, my bad. I'm sorry, dude.
dare you.
Okay, but yeah. So on a truthful factor, do we agree or disagree on that idea?
That's I don't have a problem saying Saddam Hussein was a piece of shit.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
So
So
I have one of the few people who has a problem with him being executed at all. Ironically, enough.
really,
Yeah, because I don't believe in the death penalty. And if you're a fucking real leftist, you shouldn't eat, which means you shouldn't celebrate Saddam Hussein's hanging.
oh well, I don't give a rat's ass about Saddam Hussein.
Yeah,
I
and
never
you're not
claimed to
like-
be.
If
I
you
never
can't
claimed to be a
argue
real
with
fucking
your
leftist.
principles to even bad people, you're not
I
really.
don't claim to be a leftist.
Oh, okay, whatever. Well, this was more of a
Sorry.
rant.
Yeah. Well.
Revolt, I got my eyes on you.
Yeah.
Yeah, keep looking, pal. I'm against the death penalty, and I'm against hanging him in private for sure.
Okay.
Removing him
Anyways,
from
if
power,
we can kind of
however,
get back to the point,
I think we
where
can
we would have
all
to also
be-
then agree that if you're going to invade a country that's oil rich, you have to deal with the oil infrastructure, correct?
Yes, true.
All right. So would that not become a contributing factor
No.
at any point in time? So so invading a country that has natural resources never becomes a contributing factor as to like why you would invade that country?
No, I didn't say never. It can be. It's
Oh,
not in
okay.
this particular situation.
Maybe like 5%.
Hang on, darling. Hang on. Trying to
All right.
walk me to every one of your little doors. Let me explain.
All right.
Right. The reason
Wait a
it's
minute.
not here is, well, again, for the lack of evidence of this being an. Of
Okay.
course, you have to deal with the oil infrastructure of Iraq because you
Yeah.
have to build Iraq after you destroy it.
And all right.
Yeah.
Same
Back to
way,
this article
you have
that you
to-
linked.
Hang on. Let me
Hold on.
finish.
Let him. Yeah.
Getting gangbanged here. At least let me like have a say.
Well, you're a fucking Marine. You should know better.
I am a Marine.
Well, there you go.
So, in the same way, you might also have to deal with like wounded, and you have to deal with hospitals. That doesn't necessarily mean you're invading Iraq for its like medical infrastructure either. No more so, right? Of course, you need this as part of rebuilding Iraq.
Well, we would
Iraq's
agree
got
that
a
there's a
lot of
difference in between medical infrastructure and a natural resource, though, right? We would agree that there's a functional
Yeah,
difference.
of course, there's a functional difference.
Okay, well then I don't think that would be something relevant that you would bring up. But if you want to say we invaded Iraq for their sand, I'm fine.
I'm making the parallel.
I don't think it. I don't think it to be.
You
an
want a
effective
natural resource? How
parallel.
about farmland? Right.
Ooh, yeah, sure, that's fine.
Okay.
There's
It's
a couple
just
rich
as
farmland
possible that
areas
we
there.
invaded Iraq for their farmland as for their oil. Undoubtedly, we also had conversations amongst the White House about land distribution rights in a post-Saddam Iraq. Does that mean we
Yeah.
invaded because we wanted to make farmers rich?
Well, I mean, we wanted to have a functioning economy in that area, right? If we were going to like rebuild Iraq,
We
All
want
right,
a
so that-
functioning economy in Iraq too, which is
right.
real about that Iraqi oil.
Mm-hmm. Which is something, maybe like Halliburton would say, hey, we'll come in here, we'll help rebuild the infrastructure, we'll help maintain some of the infrastructure. I think we could definitely kind of do this.
Yeah,
Does
they
that
did
seem out of the so that doesn't seem out of the realm of possibility if you're talking a post-war
I
invasion
haven't
Iraq.
denied any of that. That's very,
All
very
right. Okay. Well, then I would say, at least for me, and two devil dogs can disagree, that's completely fine, that is enough of a reasoning in behind that seemed to play some kind of an influence on the invasion. Whether it's a justification for the post-invasion economy to rebuild Iraq, right? Like, that's fine, whatever. But it does seem like, as far as the connections from Dick Cheney and Halliburton, the fact that Halliburton was the one that goes in there and helps and retrains local Iraqis, if that's what they did, to help with the oil infrastructure, it does seem like
I
a
guess-
pretty plausible thing. I'm not saying that this is the thing. I'm not.
Yeah,
I agree with you on the death of nuance. But what we're trying to sit here and say, as far as Revolt and I are going, is like, hey, this is kind of a fucking factor. And the fact
let
that
me- Well, that's the part
I
where
don't
you-
want to have a diatribe.
that's way
Go
too
ahead.
a claim based on the evidence you have.
You
I-
really think so?
Yes, that's what I've been arguing this entire time. Yes.
Sure. All right.
Fuck, you broke my train of concentration just now.
I know. It's hard being wrong, huh, Devil?
Yeah.
I know. That's all right.
Yeah, we no. So on this, we'll probably just agree to disagree. But unless there's evidence that you can make this claim
Well,
for,
I don't know what other evidence
So,
that you want.
you don't have
No,
any other
in
evidence.
the article that
you
you
have
linked-
something that's going to happen in every destroyed by warfare. Every
Okay.
country that's destroyed by warfare is going to have some people investors looking into it, or governments looking in for investors.
Yes,
That
and then
like this.
then companies in which they would profiteer off of that destruction. That
Okay.
doesn't mean that they influence a politician. That's not what I'm saying.
Let me focus your claim because I want to make sure. Maybe we're just both responding to two different things.
Okay,
Is
maybe.
your claim that part of the reason we invaded Iraq was to get their oil to enrich American investors?
I don't think so. No, I don't think I'd
Okay.
even want to go that far.
That's the claim that I'm trying to like deal with.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
this overall oil narrative about, and I'm saying there's not a basis for belief in that claim, though it is repeated like religion amongst a
Maybe.
lot of people about the Iraq War.
Yeah, sure. But I think we both could agree that it looks like Halliburton did financially benefit of the invasion of Iraq, right?
Yeah, a lot of companies benefit from the invasion of
Okay.
Iraq,
Yeah. So when we talk about, and again,
including Halliburton.
yeah, and when I try and have conversations, what is it within this scope of reason? And it looks, when I look at this, is between the connections between Dick Cheney and Halliburton, there is a factor, not the factor, and I even put a fucking number on it, which is pretty fucking dumb, of 5% seems to be accounted for when we were talking about how we were going to rebuild Iraq, that Halliburton does come in here as far as and works within the realm of their oil industry.
I'm curious, if you knew it was dumb to put a number on it, why didn't you just do what I do and say there's not enough evidence and just leave it at that?
Because I'm comfortable with putting a number on it that I think is reasonable.
It's interesting.
You just said it was dumb.
All right, now that you've got,
Sure,
you guys
but I think it's within reasonable to be dumb. I'm sorry,
Can I
Revolt. Go ahead.
this article that you linked, right, that came out in 2003. In 2002, there was a House investigation into like potential like security issues related to contractors and dealing with Iraq, specifically oil, right? And as part of that, like the people, like two of the parties that were involved. One of them was working for the CIA at the time, later got outed. It was Valerie Plame, right? And so Valerie Plame's husband is the person that was making this report. And like part of the investigation that came out during the Plame thing is that the Bush administration covered up ties between like oil interest and representatives of Iraq at the time that was desperately trying to negotiate anything war under the table. Like was
I haven't heard this.
much of the claims that were made about that were completely fabricated, it turns out.
Yeah, can you show me that link? Because my understanding is Valerie Plame's husband was investigating WMDs in Iraq, and that was the reason he got canned, was because he basically said this narrative is bullshit. Not that I don't remember making any positive claim about oil. I remember making a very positive claim about the lack of WMDs.
He's the guy in the article that you just linked that said that he had a meeting with, or they were supposed to have a meeting in Beirut.
Beirut? Okay, how do you spell Beirut? B-E-I-R-U-T.
B-E-R-U-T, I thought?
B-I-R-U-T.
Come
on, Beirut, Lebanon. U.S.
I thought it was
318 Marines.
I'm getting at if it's Beirut, I don't see Beirut anywhere in this article.
Interviews in Beirut, and then it continues from there. It's like the 17th paragraph. You want to count them?
Which article are we reading?
The
I'm reading your idiot article. Okay, never mind.
Oh, your idiot article. Okay.
I never said I was a smart person. Oh fuck! I just hit the paywall.
Yeah.
Hang on, I gotta tab this shit and read what he's
pay
talking
to
about.
be educated, so you can understand.
Oh my god, I can't. I actually can't read this article. I'm paywall locked now because I read your stupid dumbass link that you put in voice text, and now I can't open the other one.
Take that.
Capitalism
Another win for
again.
capitalism.
Fuck you, capitalism.
Yeah,
you're
son of a bitch.
Information. Damn journalists having to make money.
In any event, because of the fairness of it, I will cede the point, but I will take this up with you later when you figure out how to get around that paywall if you would like.
Yeah, we'll talk about it later.
I demand to be in the conversation so I can learn stuff about things.
See, Prime, this is why I told you this was not a very good conversation to go down for the topic.
That's fine. Look, you were going to be wrong any which way, so
yeah,
I don't actually mind.
Right?
Okay. Okay, so with the remaining time that we have left, I wanted to. We've barely talked about like the ethics of investing in these corporations. Do you think it's ethically neutral or morally neutral?
Dude, now I think it's ethically good. Arguing with you has changed my mind on this. Fuck them kids. I hope I get rich doing it.
Okay, so you're a terrible person, so it's fine. I guess it doesn't actually matter. And Wick, do you maintain the position that it's ethically neutral or good or what?
In the current system that we have, it's definitely not morally good, but it is morally neutral. Though I would argue that if you don't do your research and you don't invest in at least ones that at least try to limit casualties and things like that, then it's probably a moral sin. But no, on the whole, morally neutral.
Morally neutral. Okay. So if a company were to directly use its products to cause harm, would that also be neutral?
Cause harm to whom?
Yeah,
Like a
that's
spying
fine.
company.
Is
Like
well,
a
no.
spying company.
There are some people who, in wartime, you want to cause harm to the enemy. I think that is not
innocent
a
people.
moral sin.
I'm talking about innocent people.
Well, if a soldier is coming to kill you or to take over your things, killing them is not. They're not.
I didn't say.
innocent.
Did I say that? Did I say soldier? No.
I understand,
I said
but
innocent civilians. Yeah.
okay, no one likes civilian casualties. I don't like
I do.
civilian casualties.
Okay.
I don't think that, unless I'm severely mistaken, the purpose isn't to cause civilian casualties. The purpose is to cause casualties amongst the enemy. Sometimes that also results in civilian casualties, and that we should reduce as much as possible.
Yeah, Prime.
Well,
Dick.
could I rephrase the question and see if you like it this way? There are companies in which their defense contracts are establishing like different ways to spy on folks, right? Like an efficient way. There's a few in Israel that I know of, none of which are coming to mind right now, but like kind of like effectively create a. They can read all of your messages. They can go through your emails. They can function on their phone as if it was your phone to kind of like gauge information. Do you think it's appropriate to invest in those type of companies?
For intelligence gathering, yes.
You think it's appropriate?
Intelligence gathering is
for
extremely necessary for war, yes.
I'm curious, Redhead. Would you do you think it's indictable, the ethically indictable, not legally?
Okay, ethically, shit.
Ethically indictable for gun companies or for anybody to purchase stock in a gun company? Even though, you know, for
ethically
the exact same arguments here.
Oh, for ethics? My ethics don't say so.
Why do your ethics make a difference, like here on gun companies, but not for like defense contractors which spy on people, or make technology which can be used to spy on people?
I was posing a question. I didn't necessarily. I'm not really one to like invest in companies. I prefer the idea of like the sweat of thy brow kind of deal. That's what I said earlier.
Next time you have one of these panels, get people who actually have invested in the stock market.
I invest in the stock market. I'll talk to you about this if you'd like.
Yeah, sure. But like again,
I bought the ruble here, Turk.
Hey man, I can definitely talk about the ruble investment opportunities.
That's a terrible idea.
Sure, but again, that's not anything.
I think sanctions prevent us, right?
More
at
as like a regulation aspect.
If y'all are opposed to donating money or investing in companies because they seem to be noble and all this stuff, y'all need to stop investing in Microsoft, Amazon, and all these other companies because across the pond they are doing dastardly stuff with technology.
We just found out they're doing it to us too. We just found out the CIA is spying on everybody in the country again.
I just get rich off them.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's completely fine. Even if it like, your morals don't have to dictate your income. I think that's fine. They can be counterproductive.
Well, I think there are ways that I would refuse. Like, there are certainly ways to make money that I would refuse to do that I would find morally repulsive and repugnant.
Yeah, sure. Like, just because it's for me doesn't mean it's for fucking thee, right? Like, just because I choose not to invest doesn't mean that I think nobody else should fucking invest. Like, it helps our country become better. Like
I contest that like there's been as many people killed by companies like chemical companies and you know what I mean, like big ag
like
companies.
Roundup. Yeah, sure.
Right, like you know what I mean, like Archer Daniels Midland and whatever it is, Bayer now, but what was it, Monsanto? Like I bet you they've killed more people around the world than U.S. bullets have.
I think that's well within the reason, but like those are two different forms, right? One's like kind of like indirect, one's more direct. There's a I think there'd be like a trolley problem to fucking ask. I don't give a rat's ass. I'm not fucking smart enough for ethics, gentlemen.
New philosophy just dropped comedy utilitarianism. It's where I do the funniest action, nothing else.
That is true. That is good.
Philosophy. So when it's basically bad things are okay to happen to other people, just not me. I invest. I invest in Pol Pot. I invest in.
Dude, there needs to be a Pol Pot coin. That's a great idea.
Well, my buddy proposed a great idea the other day on Twitter. It was
Pol Pot NFT.
There's nothing.
That's where the best ideas come.
It's hashtag decentralized racism, hashtag blockchain, hashtag Martin Luther King, hashtag Dreamcoin. I have a dream.
Nailed it. Yeah, exactly. I don't think like by the time you're talking about pyramid schemes that prey on the stupid, like I don't think it matters. Like if you name it after Pol Pot, I think it's just as good.
Yeah, go buy Dreamcoin, guys. Totally not profiting off of it.
All right. What the fuck ever there?
Oh, this is weird. All right. Well,
so I like to make things funky.
So thanks to you all, and thanks to my audience here. We're going to continue on to our open lock on panel right after this. So stick around. We have more content for you. And we're going to give an exit to these good individuals, good people. Anyway,
comedic individuals. Comedic.
We're people.
I think you're dragging yourself off there. Anyway, we will continue on for content though. So we got more coming your way. !social in chat for our social media. If you've been enjoying this so far, hit that follow button, and also consider following us on Twitter. Hitting us up on Discord. Discord's where we'll have the rest of this conversation. I will have open walk on panel. If you have been annoyed by all this and wanted to get in and make your voice heard when you have an opportunity, right? So we'll have that open walk on panel in just a second. So stick around for that. Yeah. So and then of course it's YouTube. If you missed anything, like, comment, subscribe, and consider becoming a YouTube member. Supporting us that way by hitting that join button. Okay. I'm gonna give an outro. We'll start with Blay. Blay. Tell her about yourself.
Well, as much as I enjoy annoying Prime with my silly antics, and not even in an enjoyable way for Prime, just one that leaves him with a face of, ugh, I hate this fucking guy. What do I invite him back? I said it at the beginning. I'll say it again. I'm Dylan. I linked my Spotify earlier in chat, and I have no brain power left to link it again. Sorry to throw myself under the bus. I'm just too tired. Literally too tired to click 2 more buttons. I'm about to collapse. I think I passed out in my chair for like a minute there until I heard some people yelling at each other. I played the Dino game. It was a good time. It was jolly. It was grand. And hashtag buy Dreamcoin. Hashtag decentralized racism. That's all. Thank you.
All right. Oh, baby steps to this one. All right. Next we'll go to Turk. Turk, look. All of a sudden, I can see you. Right? I couldn't. I can see you in all your beautiful glory. Hold on. Right?
Yep. Yeah.
Look at this. Look at this man. Look at how handsome and beautiful he is. All right. But Turk, I'm always happy to have you around. One or the other. That's why I always hit you up. So Turk, tell a little about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm Turk. I do science and tech, conservative dude, and I love capitalism. It's a great thing. It's done a lot of good stuff in the world, even if it is for the defense military complex, not the war military complex. So if you like science and tech stuff, I'd show you the processor I'm working on, but now that I'm big screen, I can't hide it as well. So yeah, you can jump on my Discord. The Turk on YouTube if you're into Steam Deck stuff. So thanks Prime.
Yeah, it was literally called the War Department previously, and they changed the Defense Department for propaganda purposes. So yeah, it's the war contractor, the war industry, because they're doing war. Okay. Next we'll go to Redheaded Man / Dustin. Thank you for coming through and being a part of this and being an active chatter. Dustin.
Yeah, hey guys, I mean, you see me around here all the time. You will continue to see me around here until Prime gets fucking pissed off at my racist ass. And then we'll go from there. Have a good one.
Thank you. Next we have Wick. Wick,
Can we show off his head? Can we show off his head?
It's okay. My head is not as pretty as the Turks, but my takes are better. So there's that. So
yeah, that's a stretch.
So when it comes down to it, just to put a pin on this, I think that again, investment into companies that deal with defense contracting and war and ammo and whatever are not necessarily morally bad. They're morally neutral. The problem comes in the politicians and how they work with corporations. We can fix that in 3 easy ways: by increasing the wage they receive from the U.S. government, by disallowing them to trade stocks, and from putting a moratorium for them to join private companies for a certain period of time after they're done with their term of service in the U.S. government. That said, you can find me at twitch.tv/deathofcertainty. On Friday, I'm going to be having a misogyny panel with erudite Lazy Bedhead from who is a YouTube video essayist, and a few others that are going to come and talk about in honor of Women's History Month how they faced misogyny. So check it out.
Fuck you, Wick. You know I love misogyny. And
I know, but we only had room for one face of misogyny, and that's this one. So
sorry,
so
woman
I
opinion.
would like a refund.
Okay, so let's go to Revoltrise. Revoltrise, thank you for being here and arguing with LSP, helping put him in his place. I much appreciate it. It's a job that someone's got to do. I
enjoy LSP, and it is really shitty takes, and it's always a challenge to argue against him because he actually has a brain, and it's nice to run into people who are smarter than me every once in a while. And so yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it, and thank you, chat. I'll see you guys soon.
It's a shame that Wick has failed in that. All right. Finally, we have LSP, but LSP is AFK. That's unfortunate. Oh, hold on. I can see his massive shadow.
Fuck you.
Fat shaming.
Good night. Why does he do
What was that?
He embraces too much capitalism on his technology, man.
Yeah, apparently. LSP.
It's that commie Discord stuff, man.
He's not a commie. He's a filthy liberal. He's a filthy liberal.
I'm a Trumple. I said a Republican. Trump 2024, guys.
Oh boy. Anyway, LSP. I like this guy a lot. Like, despite him, I actually do like him. And I've been trying to get him back on the channel for a long time because I just really enjoy interacting with this person. Right? Don't look at our DMs. I hope our DMs never get leaked because they're the most mean-spirited fucking
like what's he possibly have with a guy who put the hard R N-word on Twitter just to see how quick he could get kicked off?
I did do that, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yes. That's what myself with. So
hey, we actually need to have that panel sometime. Okay.
We had an N-word panel the other day.
You didn't invite me?
You weren't watching? You weren't watching? You weren't watching? You weren't watching.
Oof.
He says he breathes you these lies. He's this guy on this panel. The one panel I would actually be really interested in, he totally ghosts me on. Why? Because he's black and I'm white. So Prime is a racist, guys. That's what it is.
Okay. All right.
Well, seems fine by me.
This
yeah, if racism's cool with you, then great.
Well, there we go.
And this has been another bonding
I'm
experience.
leaking our DMs, Prime. Those DMs are coming out now.
I'm against racism, but definitely for misogyny. Okay?
The bad take.
If only there'd be a panel on that.
This is
I draw a hard line at transphobia, though.
Oh my god.
You can say the N-word all you want.
Oh boy. All right, another successful bonding experience between me and LSP. All right, so we're going to move on to Open Welcome panel. Anyone here can join us, but if not, that's okay. Thanks for your time, your energy, your knowledge, and your passion. My community, I know they appreciate you so much as I do. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye, Dreamcoin.